like breakfast, and then I was like, now I'm here. I was like, I need
Well,
to put something in her. I'm gonna be like,
funny. And we are live with Shad
okay,
Johnson. What's up, man?
hey, what's up, man? How are you doing?
I was telling you a minute ago, it's been a busy day, but how's it going for you?
Uh, just I mean, it was kind of a regular day. Like just normal day at work. I just came in the
Mm-hmm.
shop and did some stuff. My lady's gone, so I'm having to take care of, not like anybody cares, but I'm taking care of both of our dogs. We have a crazy puppy, so I had to take him to puppy school. So
Ooh,
yeah, nothing too exciting. It's pretty rainy and cold outside today, so
you know, big day in the Portland BMX world.
yeah. I mean, it's been it's been cold, but it's been like dry and nice the past like week. So people have been riding. Casey Badger and I went and we dug a little yesterday,
Nice.
and then I thought it was going to be kind of nice today, but yeah, I woke up and it was raining, and I was like, oh, because we hadn't had rain for like it feels like a while, like a week and a half. So it's just like, oh, there it is again. Hello.
Yeah. Uh,
So,
what's the scene
but
like
I
out
mean, that's
there
just a
these
normal.
days?
It's good. Like I think with any, I don't know if Portland's a bigger city, but like maybe one of those cities that's like had heavy scenes for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of fluctuate. They kind of go in waves. I mean, you live in Ohio, and Ohio's had crazy scenes at times. Then dudes will get to a certain age, and they'll kind of
Yep.
come back down. And I think we're kind of coming up right now. There's so many young dudes, between like 8 to like 15 that are just crazy rippers. Um, they ride skate parks. They ride pretty much everything. A bunch of dudes even race. And I think once all those kids get about like 17 to 20, it's going to be crazy. So, and a lot of the dudes are like dudes I grew up with, kids that are like, that are coming up, and yeah, it's pretty awesome to watch some of the progression with some of the younger dudes. So the scene's good right now. I mean, still probably a lot of the dudes people remember from back in the early 2000s are still
Mm-hmm.
riding, um, and then just a lot of their kids are riding. And but it's wintertime. We don't have an indoor park, so it's just like, what can we hit? Like I said,
Yeah.
Casey and I were digging yesterday, and that's like a spot that old trail spot that used to be kind of running, but it's more of a winter spot because it's sandy.
Mm.
So some of the young dudes were kind of hyped on it. So we're like, all right, we went out and started fixing some lips and stuff. And there's a couple other dudes. This dude Adam Treadwell, a longtime racer, and he kind of rides everything. He went out and put a lot of work in on some stuff. So he kind of got a little fire lit on everybody, and I think we're just try to ride that till it gets too wet.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no, the scene's good. I mean, lots of skate parks and a lot of dudes that ride. So
Awesome. That's cool. I just put two and two together that Patty Gross is somewhere out there.
yeah, Patty lives here in Portland. He's lived here for I mean, he's lived here the whole time he's lived in the States, probably since like 2015 or something. But Patty used to visit us in the early 2000s because he was really good friends with Daniel Randall
Mm.
when Daniel rode for We the People, and they met in Germany, and then he started coming over and visiting. And like, yeah, I mean, Patty's so amazing, but he feels like he's lived in Portland since like the Blueprint time,
Yeah.
even though he started coming just right after that. But it just feels like he's been here forever. But yeah, Patty lives out here, and um, he's always on his schedule. He's got his strict riding schedule and strict work. That's how
Mm.
he functions. So, but I always love it when Patty comes in the shop and we get to hang out for a little.
Yeah, he's such a good dude. He's like, I haven't seen him since Baco in
Yeah.
2015, and he still will text me around holidays and be like, a very personalized text.
Oh yeah,
And
he'll take the time out for people. Like he's a and like when he talks about things and stuff, he's very sincere about it. Like with friends or
mm,
even with writing, like he's a very sincere person.
yeah.
So
Um.
and he's amazing on a bike. So
Oh, incredible.
I always try to get him to. I think he might be. I'm sure some Australian or somebody's done it, but uh, the tail whip bar spin, the tail whip air half bar spin that like Mira used to do. Patty used to do them in the late
Wow.
90s, but he would have to. I think he has to tail whip air. He has to do an opposite tail whip air to half bar spin. Is how he would do it. He explained it to me, and I was just like, so you made it even harder, like
Yeah.
so.
Wow.
But yeah, Patty's, he's probably just finishing up work, and he's been driving down to the Eugene area a lot, riding this covered mini ramp. So
Nice. Yeah, I've seen the clips from that.
yeah.
So I'm going to admit and I'm going to apologize for not being as well read as I should be on some BMX things.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Educate me on Blueprint because I know nothing.
Um, I mean, it was started off as just a scene video. Like, some of my friends and I, we've always made videos. When I was younger, haven't posted this one online, but there's a video my friends and I made when I lived in Central Oregon called Ride Your Bike.
Hmm.
And then I moved to the Eugene, Oregon area, and we made a video. Name's gonna sound kind of weird, but it came out in 94, 95, and it was called Bestiality. It was just because in the beginning we chased sheep like naked, like
Oh,
it's 90s BMX,
okay.
whatever, dudes are. And then we made a video around 97, 98 called The Friend Between My Legs. And it was pretty, if you've seen the uncensored one, it's pretty wild. Like, I remember we gave a copy to the guys on Road Fools 2 when they came through. And, I think dudes were like, what's going on with you guys? Really, really good writing. Both that bestiality video and The Friend Between My Legs are on the Snakebite channel. They're just highly censored.
Okay.
Um, well, yeah, yeah. So they're pretty censored, but the writing's great. And then we were just starting on another video. I had just moved from Eugene to Portland, so I had some footage from Eugene. And both those crews back then rode together a ton. You know, Eugene, Salem, Portland, and even a lot of the Southern Oregon riders riding together a bunch. The scene was super tight. We had a couple of indoor parks, and we just were filming like we would just for another video. Like some younger dudes were stepping up. Yeah, I mean, like when you
Hmm.
guys are just filming videos, you're like, oh, I got a buddy over here, he's ripping. Yeah, do you want to film a part? Sure. So we were just doing like normal, and then I went to go to work at Woodward that summer, and we're like, oh, we should make a promo for the video just to show people there, like some of our friends and stuff. We just thought we were going to make video like where we just sold it at jams and stuff, like we do, like, hey, we got this video for sale.
Hmm.
And then I showed it to Bruce Chrisman was there as a visiting pro, and Bruce and I grew up riding together. And Bruce wanted me to show Ruben, so I showed it to Ruben, and then Ruben was super excited about the demo, and we were like, oh, that's weird. Even Bruce was like, that's weird, and because we just thought, I mean, I think every scene thinks that, where you think the rest of the world's like 1,000 times better than you. So,
Hmm.
when a scene's super hungry, you're riding super hard, but you still think you're like 10 clicks away from those other dudes, where probably you're closer than you think you are. It's just, we're in the Pacific Northwest, in the middle of nowhere. No one would come up here, you know?
Yeah.
But then Ruben wanted me to show it to the props guys because they were there for CFB contest. And then I showed it to them. I remember I got to go on the props, the Road Fools bus, the one that was one of the Jack, one of the country singers. Like the second. The
Oh,
first,
yeah, I've
yeah.
heard this.
So I went on there, and like Dave Frymouth and everybody's on there, and I showed it to him. I'm super nervous. I don't know. I've never met any of these dudes. They're just like
Yeah.
super pros. And they were all psyched. And then Marco hit me up. Like, I think he got my number, or somebody hit me up. I think Marco did, and asked if they could distribute the video when it came out.
Wow.
And back then that was a big deal. Like, I mean, I wouldn't even know. I would never even have attempted to try to get distribution for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then that next summer, I think it came out, or that next year came out, and they distributed it, and it did pretty well. Like, but yeah, it was just meant to be like just a local video that we were just kind of filming for our friends, and it
Yeah.
just turned into more. I think it did help that Bruce, kind of, a few dudes in our scene were starting to blow up. Like Bruce Chrisman, Justin Inman,
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Randall. So dudes were starting to pay attention. Rich Hirsch, you know, so dudes were starting to pay attention a little bit, and dudes were starting to come out of our scene, that did help a lot. And I think, in hindsight, I mean, I think it did help a lot of the riders up here get known, you
Yeah.
know. So,
Well, I've
but yeah,
heard of those riders that you're listing, and they're well-known riders. So if that's like part of the catalyst, I definitely would say it's a.
yeah. I mean, when we started filming Justin, he was 15 for that video, maybe 16.
Yeah.
He'd just moved to Salem. He was like a junior in high school, and he was a little racer dude. And he started coming out to the Salem trails, to the Solame trails, and then he started hanging with us, riding Burnside and stuff. And he was just, I mean, we've all been around like crazy talented riders. I mean, he was just blowing us away, and he just had this perfect style. Like, it was just crazy, you know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you had him ripping, at the same time you'd have Bruce, who, this is pre Free Coaster Bruce, when he was like super contest dude. And you know, it was just wild back then with the sessions with those dudes for that video, you know. um but yeah, the video did good. And then I think, you know, right after that, Rich started filming for the Salvation video. The Salem dude started filming for Building the Underground. You know, it kind of just, everybody went everywhere from it, you know.
It like it was a literal blueprint
Yeah,
without
kind
even realizing.
of. The funny thing is, we got the name Blueprint. Taj is the one who named the video,
Oh, that's awesome.
because Taj lived up, he lived in Olympia, Washington then, and he'd come down and ride once in a while because he was friends with Jamie McParland, who was from the Midwest, grew up with Kurt Schmidt and stuff.
Okay.
And he came down, and we called Taj because we were trying to figure out a name. And Jamie and Taj talk all the time about guitars and stuff. And we were listening to Fugazi, and there's that song Blueprint.
Okay.
And I don't know if Taj heard it in the background. He's like, you should name it Blueprint, from the Fugazi song. And it just stuck. So that's what we went with.
How crazy. So it had nothing, no intent of any of that. I mean, you can't have that kind of intent with you're making a video. Like, I mean, maybe, but it's cool to hear how you guys were just making a video of your group, not realizing the gravity that it would actually have while you're
Yeah,
doing
I
it.
mean, we figured our friends would see it, the Canadian dudes, because we rode a lot with dudes in British Columbia then, like
Mm.
Jason Enns and Asado. And, you know, when there'd be jams, our crews would intermingle. And Rich Hirsch and Matt Puro from Blaine, and Andrew Reiser, and that's the border town. And Andrew had all these epic ramps at his
Yeah.
house. So we'd all kind of intermingle there. So we figured those guys and like the basic bike guys would get it. And then I figured a few of my friends down Huntington Beach, because we were good friends with like Bar Spinner Ryan and Adam Pope and stuff. Um, and I'd go down and stay at the old HB house, like Timmy Ball's house. So I figured, oh, I'll send those guys a couple videos and things. And I figured that was going to be it. You know, maybe the solid guys and a few NorCal dudes would end up with it, but nothing like what it ended up doing, you know?
That's incredible. I think the best things are that way, where you don't have intentions of anything like that. You're just doing it for the love
Yeah.
of doing it, and then the universe does its magic and it goes crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in that video. It's like, see, it's like the whole video might have, you know, looking back, it's kind of like that. But then there's parts like Lou Rasich's part, you know, it's like, he's like just a flash in the pan, you know, boom, you know, super progressive street part. And then he was gone, you know, so.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that happens to the
Oh yeah,
best
yeah. No,
people,
and
you know.
sometimes it's healthy for that to happen, you know, like, you know, some dudes, BMX is different for everybody. So some dudes,
Hmm.
you know, will give what they can, or, you know, ride the way they want to, but, you know, everything does have an expiration point, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just recently begun to accept the fact that, like, when someone's falling out of riding, it sometimes they just, like, not everybody loves it the same as I
Yeah.
do, and that's okay.
And sometimes they come back. Sometimes, you know, I see a
Yes.
lot, you know, owning a shop, you'll see a lot of dudes, you know, car, girlfriend, you know, maybe trying to work construction or something right out of high school, stop riding or something, And then, maybe about 28 or so, they start coming back into it. They're like, oh, I don't know why I quit. Like I got into partying this and I just want to do something that I enjoyed.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you always have the dudes that kind of float in and out.
Yeah, I've noticed. I mean, just having the YouTube channel I do, there is so many older guys who have kids now, whatever it might
Hmm.
be, that are realize that they are coming back into riding,
Oh yeah.
and it is amazing. I think this might be a great place to bring up the Snakebite channel, because it is like a great resource for some of those people to go back and see some of the stuff that they remember growing
Yeah.
up with.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know. I don't really. I mean, I know the channel kind of. It definitely has its old school vibe. Like it's kind of like, I just, you try to have projects all the time, especially here in Oregon where the weather is bad, and
Mm-hmm.
started off, you know, I don't even know. I mean, we still do have our website. I haven't done much on it because I've been so busy, and the YouTube is honestly a little bit easier than, like, where you're putting stuff in like five different spots.
Yeah.
It's really not like 2005 to 2015 where you would be on a website digging around, which I
Yeah.
do enjoy, and I appreciate websites that are like that. So I just started posting more and more on YouTube, and then I started realizing a lot of my old mini DV, high eight, mini VHS tapes, a lot of them are kind of going bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I have lots of footage that I want to enjoy looking back on me and my friends, but lots of epic riding footage. So I just started dumping them on here. Like, here's the raw footage.
Yeah.
Here's the raw footage. And then a few of my friends started hitting me up. It's like, hey, I've got this footage. Like, dude, Eben Krakow has came through. He has the gnarliest collection of like all these contests because he was like kind of a vert child prodigy for Haro in the 80s. So his dad was taking him to all the vert contests in the 80s and filming it. So he's given us so much footage, and I'll just post up dudes runs, even if it's like a dude from an AFA contest that was maybe riding 14 15 intermediate vert, just some normal rider. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
post up his run because he may see that or Google his name and it comes up, and he hasn't seen him ride bikes for like 30 years, which it's not something. I've had dudes reach out to me and freak out because this is the only footage they've ever seen of them riding.
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, I loved what I rode. I can't believe you had this, and they'll go through all
Mm-hmm.
this stuff with me. And it makes me feel good posting up. So I just post up as much stuff as I can, whether it's a dude who's not very good or, some Matt Hoffman when he was 15, or Carlo Griggs, or I have stuff all across the board
Yeah.
because it's just all bike riding, and it makes people happy.
Right. Absolutely. So, the stuff that's on the channel here, how much of this is stuff that is like people are like, "Hey, I want you to post this," or you made it back in the day, or
um I'd say it's like 50-50.
nice.
um it so there's like, I've got a ton of tapes. I have a lot of my friends' tapes. I have, when Rich and I had goods together, when we were, Rich Hirsch and I grew up together, and we're like brothers, even though we haven't talked in a long time. I mean, he's like family, and all our tapes were mixed up. So I have like all the footage from Low Tech Vancouver. I have all this crazy like stuff from like Low Tech and Fremont, and and I have tapes where I'm like, I don't even know where this tape came from. I have footage from Solid, when Aaron shut Solid Bikes down.
Mm-hmm.
I got all the footage. I've got tons of sponsor me tapes. I just posted up a dude sponsor me tape today. I don't even know who it is. The dude JJ Williams.
Yeah.
Um, Definitely got the 2010s vibes with the Animal New Era hat, and
Yeah.
but he's ripping. Like, maybe he doesn't have that anymore. Maybe he'll see that. And there's been, to be honest, in the whole time I've done it, there's been maybe two times people have reached out and like, hey, can you just take that down? And
Mm.
I'll pop it down. But most people reach out and they're super psyched. So I just have tons of footage, and I just don't want it to rot away.
Right.
So I just post it up, and then there are some videos that were just older videos that I just post up to like watch. I mean, some of it's like a selfish thing. Like I'm like, I don't want to have to search for this
Oh,
video.
yeah.
I'm just gonna post it on my channel. Some random, you know, contest video from the 80s. Like I'll just post this up.
Yeah.
And that way, if I want to watch it, I'll go watch it because I kind of just get stuck watching the same 5 videos over and over to stay stoked. And then sometimes I'll cut them down because some of them there'll be parts in them, and you're like, well, that'd be cool if that dude's part was just separated from the video.
Mm.
So somebody searches his name, the part will come up instead of a video coming up and somebody's like, is he in there? Like, where everybody's attention span's so small, no one's going to watch maybe a 30-minute video.
Right, and just in today's day and age, it's harder to catalog something when it's longer like that without
Yeah.
having separate parts. And I think it totally makes sense to have, like, if something exists in its entirety plus individual things just for the sake of being able to find it easy.
Yeah, and just a catalog. I mean, I'm such a BMX history nerd that it's like, my brain works. I'm like, oh, we got to catalog it all. It's got to be like this. So when somebody looks back and they type in his name, this will come up and somebody can see what he did.
Right.
And yeah, so that's basically been my whole year. I've been cataloging magazines, cataloging videos, cataloging zines, and just kind of, yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Somebody has to do it, because if nobody does it, or only a couple people do it here and there, whatever, like it just will cease to exist because certain things may have never gotten translated to
Yeah.
digital.
Well, I mean, there's a couple. Well, I don't know if he still posts on. There's that one website called 23 Mag.
I've
And
seen that.
I think it's French, and it has a lot of good information. But I think the dude stopped doing it. But it's still up, and it has a lot of good stuff. And there, I don't know really anybody there, but I would have hopes for the USA BMX Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
But it always feels like they're pretty. And this is not a diss to them. They do a lot of things, but. It feels like they're slow to get to that. Like they took forever to start just letting freestylers in the Hall of Fame, where you're like, this year they put in TJ Lavin, which well deserved. TJ's awesome, and then they put in Kevin Jones, which he should have. Kevin Jones is the most influential flatlander probably ever.
Yeah.
Like should have probably been in a while ago. But if you're looking at it, you're like, okay, it's 2022, and Taj isn't in the Hall of Fame yet. It's like, where are we going to be at 2050? Are we just going to start putting in like Aiken? Like it feels like they're running behind on things, and I don't know how much they're cataloging things or they're planning on it. And I don't know really who at USA. I think maybe Gork, maybe Shannon Gillette or somebody. I don't really know who. I don't want to put out people's names, but but I know they're starting to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, that gets me excited. Like I just went through, me and R.E.A. Levinson.
Yep.
We basically just went through like 5,000 magazines I had.
Oh my gosh.
Like maybe a little less. Sorting. I've been putting down what I need. I pretty much have like almost every ride. Like maybe I'm missing like 15. I've got every freestyling. I've got every go. I've probably got 90% of every BMX plus. Which that goes back to 78.
Mm-hmm.
I have magazines that go back to 76. So I'm just trying to fill out those collections, which I don't know why, but I am. But I'm about to start selling a lot of magazines because I have so many leftover copies. So I'm going to start posting them up on BMX Museum to be getting them out of my life.
Are you like digitizing those at all anyway?
I mean, maybe down the line. There is a cool website right now if you just want to look at some old school BMX magazines called oldschoolbmxmags.com. And
Okay.
I feel like that's one that dudes haven't posted on for a while either. But they have pretty good scans. So like if you want to see freestylings or goes or some BMX actions.
Yeah. I think
they're missing some, but I don't know if I'd eventually go there. I think somebody should, and maybe it'll be me one day. It's just I don't make any money off it, and I still got to run a shop and
right. Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Absolutely. And I think maybe it'll end up being like a a cumulative effort between people, because you've got like you with Snakebite, then early 2000s. Granted, it's Instagram, but
Yeah.
it is. I mean, James is doing a great job with what he's doing,
Yeah.
um, and then something like the hard copy BMX
Yeah,
archive.
I sold that dude a ton of DVDs.
Yeah, so if like maybe in the future everybody will come together and make like one super resource.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I would hope it would just be USA BMX because they have the funds and they have the money and they have an
Mm-hmm.
awesome building. And I know they have catalogs of magazines and stuff. Um, because sometimes I think about with like my bike collection, and I have certain bikes that I'm building up that are like pros bikes, like history bikes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't know where they'll go if like one day something happens to me. And there's a lot of dudes that have bikes like that, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like I think it's like I mean it is their responsibility now because they've stepped into that to be like, hey, we're here for this, but we want, I think a lot of collectors, people that care about BMX, they want to see them do the good job first before more stuff rolls in, and
Right.
they just started. So, and I see people giving them some stuff, and it's just like, yeah, I want to see where that goes because, yeah, I mean, there's so many dudes with awesome pieces of history, and
All
BMX is
spread
like
out, right?
50 years old now, so it's like everything like the history and the Hall of Fame thing and all this. I feel like everybody's coming into it a little late. Like we should have jumped on the gun 2003 or something to
Yeah.
start the process.
Yeah, well, so basically what I'll do then is I will find the stamp for when we started talking about this, and I will send it directly to the president of USA
Oh
BMX.
no,
And I'll say,
I don't want any
"Look,
of those dudes. I'm just, I don't want my USA BMX membership. I don't want to go to race one day and be like, oh
no,
shit.
it won't be like that," because Shane, the guy who's the president of USA BMX, is an awesome dude who will see that and be like, "Oh,
Yeah,
like
they did an
that's a great
awesome
idea."
event this year here in Portland. Well, like one of the suburbs, they did a USA BMX contest at Newburgh Skate Park.
Yeah.
While I think Newburgh was having I think it was a Governor's Cup, so there was a big race going on and the
Yeah.
freestyle contest, and that was a super fun day. And yeah, I mean, definitely not. I'm not trying to diss. I'm just saying, like, I'm excited to see, a institution in BMX that has a little bit of money, and I know money's always tight for everybody, even when it looks.
Mhm.
But I'm excited to see what they can do because the facility looks awesome. The Hall of Fame room looks awesome. I'd like me being more of a freestyle guy. I'd like to see some more freestyle stuff in there.
Yeah.
You know, um, yeah, it excites me. So I want to see how it ticks and works and stuff like that.
So basically, I look at something like this the same way I look at like kids in skate park etiquette. It's like until somebody says something to them, they might not think about it.
Yeah,
So if this could be the catalyst that like
yeah. I mean,
pushes, you know what I'm saying?
yeah. I just kind of. I mean,
Either
yeah. No,
way.
it fully is. I think sometimes I'll just say things or ramble on where people are like, "Oh, Shad's so old crazy."
No,
Dude.
not even a
You
little
know?
bit. Not with this one anyways. This is perfect. I think it makes
Yeah.
total sense.
And hopefully they don't I don't go to race one day and they're like, your membership's void, no more racing for you.
No, that won't happen. Uh
But yeah, no, I'm just I just get excited about BMX and get excited about all the dudes and all the stories, and I wished I could do more, but it I just do what I can and have fun with it, and
Dude, you
yeah.
do so much. I mean, we've talked about like a chunk of it, but then there's all this other stuff. Like you have Goods BMX, right?
Yep.
Like what is that?
Well, it's a bike. I mean, it's a it's a bike shop that's turning into. I decided after we had all our break-ins, we had two really bad break-ins during the pandemic, almost put us out of business. Um, and then we moved the shop into a new spot that's dope. And that's why I'm organizing everything. I'm trying to make my office space cool,
Mm-hmm.
and more organized because I had everything kind of up in this like loft area at the old place. And yeah, I mean, Goods is it's just a bike shop, and we kind of do a little of everything. We do regular, freestyle stuff. We kind of jumped into racing. We have a whole separate race website that we kind of wanted to test out a new website hoster, a place to host a website, because our old website's kind of dated.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna change the regular goodsbmx.com one, but I just haven't had time yet.
Yeah.
But so we do racing, we do freestyle, and we do old school and mid school stuff. I'm not scared to put it on the floor, because I like when people come in and, like, a dad sees a bike he's excited about, the kid sees a bike he's excited about, and we can just talk about BMX. Or if a racer comes in, he sees, he's like, oh, you guys got supercrosses on the wall. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, whoa, you got this old school GT race bike here. I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, so it just to keep all the BMX conversation and the stoke fluid and having fun talking about it. And it makes the shop funner for me. I mean, I'm not going to lie to anybody. I'm not in my head, I still feel like I'm 23, but I know I'm not. I'm closer to 50 than 23, and it keeps BMX fun for me. It's like I'm excited about new things, but then I'm excited when I get an old thing, or I can get somebody something that's old. Like, I have a friend that'll be like, oh, I'm looking for this, and I'm like, I got you, and then they can finish something.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and so I just tried to do a little of everything. I was just like, after that break-in, I was just like, I'm just going to kind of let the shop just be like me, and whatever comes of it, comes of it. I'm just going to try to have fun with it.
And it's been around for quite a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've been around since 2005, so that's kind of weird that I've had business.
Holy cow. So your shop is almost an adult.
My shop's older than REA, who comes and helps out a lot.
That kid, okay, we can just talk about that kid for a little
REA's
while.
awesome.
I remember seeing him, I think for the first time, when we were just out in California or something like that. But we rode at the full factory ramps after, I think it was after the USA BMX Championship in 2021. No.
Yeah. So he would have probably been like 13 or 12.
It couldn't have been. I don't know. It feels longer ago than that, but
it could be, yeah.
Just incredible at that point, and like younger, and then just watching him get bigger and so much better at riding.
Yeah, he just moved to Portland, so he lived out in the woods in Southern Oregon, and he'd ride the skate parks that were in some towns close to his, but he'd mainly just ride like a lot of his wood ramps and like this gravel driveway. Now that he's moved to Portland, I mean, I've seen his level just jump. He's been here since the end of summer, but just him riding like big quarter pipes and stuff. Like, I've seen him already progress a ton. He's a big dude now. He just turned 16. He's probably 6 foot tall. He's a big dude.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, REA is awesome. He's a super good dude, and he's, he comes from Southern Oregon, and there's a rich, there's a lot of the pro BMXers from Oregon come from Southern Oregon. You got Josh White, you've got Chester Blacksmith, you've got Sean McIntosh, you've got now REA, and then there's been a lot of dudes that probably should have been pro down. I mean, so he's coming from a good, rich, gnarly dude area.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's up here. He's actually down S&M. He's down in California right now. He went down for that Haro Turkey Jam thing.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And I think he was flying home tonight. And then yeah, REA comes here and hangs out. He's super into BMX, everything BMX. REA still races.
Yeah.
Like, he still races expert. He's still really, I mean, when you're 16X, I mean, he's not clipped in, and he's not trying to be that dude at the national, but he could maybe make a main at a national, riding flats. I mean, I'm not saying he could, but he's still really fast, and if you make a main at 16X, that's super gnarly, but I'm not saying he could, but he's still really fast. He rides dirt, he rides street, he rides park. He's super into like BMX history. Since he was like 6 years old, he's been getting old magazines and old videos from me, and
Wow.
studying them. I guess just watching them. He just watched videos, and then he just put together his first like mid-school bike. He when he was 8, they he found a chromoly 2-hip pork frame,
Whoa.
and he's held on to it ever since. He loves it, and we just put it together for him. And he like went to the skate park and was like tail whipping hips and stuff on it.
That's
like
so sick.
But it's like set up like with 7.25 bars. Like,
Right.
I mean, it's real deal, like Survivor mid-school. Like, we're not completely done with it. We're gonna put a gyro and brakes on it.
The
But,
Fishbones gyro?
No fishbone gyro. We want it to work.
One of my buddies growing up, who was like my older brother riding, he had a 2-hip pork and he put a Fishbones gyro on,
Nice.
built it all up. Like, it was sick.
Do you remember the UFO gyros? They were out for a little.
Mm-hmm.
Ian Morris and a few dudes rode those, and I was always curious about those, but I never saw them in person. They were kind of bigger, like, you know, like the gyro plate.
Oh, I'm looking at one right now. Yeah, that thing
Yeah.
is enormous.
It's really big, but I remember like Ian Morris and a few other dudes rode them for a while. And I haven't rode a gyro or a detangler. I rode a rotor more in my life than I have a gyro.
Mm-hmm.
I took my brakes, not my brakes off. I took my detangler off at like 14, maybe, yeah, like 14, because I wanted to be like the dirt bros. So I was like, they don't need a detangler. I'm done riding flatland, you know. And I took it off, and my bike's literally been kind of set up pretty much the same ever since. 4 pegs, straight cable. There was a time in the 90s where sometimes I'd have a front brake on, but other than kind of really crappy nose wheelies and some nose picks over spines and just a nose pick, I sucked at them, you know.
Yeah.
I tried a few half bar spins out and got gutted, and I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, no doubt. It only takes one of those to be like, no more of those.
We're so good with front brakes, and I put them back on to try to hang with like Bruce and Rich Hirsch and Matt Puro, you know, all the tech dudes. Because they were riding like with Jason Enns and Asado and, you know, all these dudes, Greg Axford.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get into the front brakes, and no, I suck. I sucked at front brakes. I mean, I could nose pick some corners, and nose picking over a spine's always fun, but like, yeah, when I started trying to throw the bars out and stuff, it just, that only happened a few times, and I was just like, no, I'm just going back to a straight cable in the back.
Yeah, I get it. Totally. So I got a couple questions here I want to throw out from the chat. So let me scroll back here. They said Shad and Blueprint was dope. Was it Shad doing Surfs Up?
Surfs Up?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means. Chief asks this. I'm not sure.
I don't know what Surfs Up is. I mean, sounds like a sick TNC Surf Designs t-shirt, but
yeah.
No,
okay,
I don't know what that. If that's another video, it wasn't me.
Clarify, please, if you're still here. And then Adam Ortiz said, "Tell Shad to upload Sunday up and away, please."
I think Sunday already has that. I try not to. I mean, there's a few that drip over where I posted up parts, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's just on the Sunday YouTube channel. That video is awesome though.
I see a part for me and Shorts on there on the YouTube, but I don't know. That's
the whole
just
thing
what comes
on
up
there?
I don't know. I just searched on Google real quick.
I mean, yeah, maybe. I try not to post stuff up if a company's already got it that's like a company still in business, you know?
Yeah.
Just because that, you know, I'm not trying to be like, yeah, we're doing all this and stuff, but
yeah.
Yeah, I would have thought that Sunday would have had that up, but I mean, there are times like we just talked about, like where a company, maybe one of their older videos, the whole video will be up, but the parts aren't, and the dudes just want to watch a couple parts from up, you know, like in Ian Schwartz part from up and away, you know, it's like, post that up. Everybody wants to see that.
Yeah, so what it looks like is that there's a lot of random channels that have uploaded parts from it. Even Sunday has Jake Seeley's part that was uploaded 6 years ago, but I don't see it in full on.
Oh, weird.
What it doesn't come up anyways.
Yeah.
So I had to go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's just one of those things. I think some of the companies should be better at that stuff, because I mean, that's their history too, and they should protect it. And, you know, even maybe dude's not on the team anymore, just be like, you should, you know, probably should have done it a long time ago, but get those parts up so people can watch them separately, you know?
Right. And I mean, you might as well get the views from that rather than, you know, I mean, I'm not going to say anything bad because this is probably somebody whose name means something in BMX, but the channel there, a couple of them are uploaded, is Mother Teresa BMX.
Yeah.
So
I
like,
mean, yeah.
rather than them getting the views, which is
Yeah, I mean,
fine, but
well,
like,
hopefully one of the dudes over Full Factory hears, and it's like, yeah, we'll just pop the rest of these things up, because
mm-hmm,
Jim Selinsky had that super dope part on there, didn't he? Like where
it's
he's
on
like,
here. I see it.
okay, yeah, he did the bar spin through the little square cage that was the cover of Dig in that, and a few things. I think that was that one. That was like a super good Jim C part, I believe.
Yeah, it's up here on a different channel, but it's there. It would be
Yeah,
great to see it all in one place. And I mean, everybody is trying to upload on YouTube these days, company
yeah, yeah,
wise. So like, why? That gives you something else to post, and to give anyone like maybe ease some fears about copyright stuff, unless it is by a song by like who's own. How do I want to say this? The companies that own the rights are total jerks. You're gonna be fine. Like
yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't
I mean,
matter.
it you. I mean, I've been posting stuff on YouTube and Vimeo, from having the shop for a long time, and it's usually like it's got to be like Prince or like someone crazy,
Mm-hmm. The
Ozzy
Ramones is one.
Osbourne, like most stuff clears. I mean, no one that's got. If people think people have got YouTube channels and they're making a bajillion dollars, they're crazy.
Yeah,
It takes
you.
so much to, you know, even
Yeah.
probably like when the come up was hitting hard, Adam probably wasn't making a ton of money. Like and I'm thinking that was like when that channel was probably the most raging channel at one point, there in the mid tens,
Mm-hmm.
like people I think sometimes think people can make more on you. My YouTube makes like $100 like every 6 months.
Yeah.
It's like it's it's like it does nothing. It's just there. It's more like my YouTube is literally there for selfish reasons, just so I can go watch videos in one place and be like, oh, I want to watch Monsters of Suburban High Life. I'll just go to my channel and watch one of my favorite videos.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, there's I just it makes perfect sense to have companies upload their videos to their own channels.
Yeah, but I do think there are some companies, not Sunday, and the guys Full Factory usually, they do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some companies that are just like companies that you'll see them do a video and it's posted on some other person's YouTube channel. You're like, what? Why aren't you guys?
Yeah.
And usually that's sometimes a rider that'll be like my age or a little older that's just not understanding how that is nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always a disconnect in BMX is sometimes when you get older, you stop listening to younger riders because you want to be like, this is the way it's got to be this way, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, just it's their way, it's your way, it's everybody's way.
Yeah.
But if you want people to see your way, you've got to jump through the hoops.
Right. Yeah. You got to make it easier on yourself,
Yeah,
especially in the future with things.
yeah, it's just going to get more and more like this.
All right. Exactly.
Which is awesome because we'll get more and more videos and more awesome stuff to enjoy when you like BMX. But at the same time, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty adept for a dude my age, but I have friends that are a little younger, and you'll be like, "Oh, just go here and look at it," and they're like, "What?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Dude, you're like 39 right now. Like, come on." Like, I'm like, I know how to do this, and I didn't turn a computer on until I was 29.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
Yeah.
never even did anything on a computer till I was 29.
Yeah, it reminds me of my parents. They were like, they started out with like, I'm not putting my credit card in the internet. Now they're both sitting in their chair with their
Oh yeah, yeah.
iPads.
My parents, well, I grew up super like in the country, and my dad was like a logger and stuff, and they're like, we don't need a computer. And then I remember the kids at computer school, or you're just like, oh, that's the nerdy kids that are there playing like video games. And I think 2 years after me or a year after me is when you had to take mandatory typing in computer classes, but it wasn't a thing for me, so I never took it.
Yeah.
And then I remember like at 29, Rich made me like get an email. He's like, Rich is like, you need to get an email. And
That's funny.
yeah, then he showed me how to turn on the computer and all this stuff. So
Isn't it wild to think about how like kids today are just they're raised with it from the
oh
time
yeah,
they're a
yeah.
baby, but people who grew up with it and saw the progression of things, it's like
Oh yeah, yeah.
wild.
No, they always freaked me out a little. Like, I mean, it doesn't anymore, but like when I was younger, like I was like, oh, computer, I'm like, all right, like, but yeah, it's fine. I mean, you watch me type, you can definitely tell I didn't learn how in school.
That's so good.
So
There was a clarification. Apparently, I think he said shirt video, but I think he meant short video that's called Surfs Up.
no, that wasn't me. I I mean, I'd like to see that video since it's a video I haven't seen, but
Yeah.
nope, I didn't do any video called Surfs Up. I mean, the videos I've been kind of involved in are, the ones I mentioned, Bestiality, which I always feel embarrassed saying the name, but we were teenagers. Friend Between My Legs, Blueprint. I helped film for a lot of the early Infection videos. I don't know if you're familiar with that series.
I'm not sure.
Pacific Northwest series. Where actually, Scott Hagness, Flatlander from up here, he had a lot to do with kind of the Northwest BMX scene. Did a lot of awesome videos, like that whole Infection series, and we're gonna start posting them up on Snakebite. He did 6 full videos, and then he did 9 what we called local videos with like the leftover footage. And his normal videos got distributed by Sandbox, which was Steve Inge. I
Oh,
believe they
sweet.
distributed them. So they got around back in the day. No one really saw the local videos, which was like the leftover footage. And we always talked about doing a like Pacific Northwest box set, with like his videos, my videos, and a few of the others.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of worthless now. It's just like we'll post them up and everybody can enjoy them. So he's gonna dig out the masters, and I'm gonna start posting them up once a week here soon.
Nice. That's awesome.
And there's a lot of early Jason Ends and like Asato and stuff, like when they were, a lot of dudes from up here, like when they were really young, like so.
That is so cool. I've never even thought about that aspect of things. Seeing the progression of Ends or Osato would
Well,
be cool.
I don't even know. I think they've just been good since the womb.
Oh, okay. Fair
Like
enough.
the first time I saw Dave Asato, here's my Dave Asato thing.
Okay.
It was 94, and it was my first time. We went to Canada to Nelson for this contest, and I was 17. Dave, I think he's a few months younger than me. He probably was 17. So we go to this contest, and in my head, BMX was like still like right on. Like I came from a little town, so I just moved to Eugene and was starting to see other things, but there was no internet, so you just learned from videos.
Mm-hmm.
We watched Ride On all the time, so BMX was kind of stuck in 1990, 91 for me. So I'm doing like fakie wall rides, big fakie airs, trying to 180 the box jump, like fast plants. Asato shows up. He has a Kuwahara Magician Pro from 87 with stuff welded on it to make it stronger. He has slam bars with like plates welded under it so they can't bend down. And his first trick right out the gate, I believe, so at the back of the contest, there was like a 10-foot quarter and an 8-foot quarter. And he goes up and does a Canadian on the 8-foot, which to me, I would have lost. I'd have been like, this is crazy, to full bar.
Whoa.
I mean, he's the first one to do those. And he just did it at this contest on an 8-foot quarter pipe. And me seeing that, and I think a lot of dudes seeing that, then you were just like, oh, this is where we're at right now. We're not, dirt bro street riding or, maybe riding mini ramp. Like, not the dudes in Ride On weren't riding mini ramp good, but it just went to a whole nother level,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Ends riding that contest, doing variations like, and ending it with like 2.5 bar spins and stuff. And you're just like, oh, I've got a lot to work on right now, so. But yeah, there's a lot of footage of those dudes in those videos. So
I'm gonna definitely have to pay attention to see those.
if you want to watch one on there right now that's got a lot of footage from Canada and like the Seattle Bellingham area from back in the day, watch Burnt Toast.
Burnt Toast.
My buddy Sky Stewart was the main one kind of put together, but it's really good. I think it's 94, but most people won't recognize it's Ends. He's wearing a full face in a lot of it, but there's Ends, Asato, a lot of the basic guys, a lot of, the Seattle dudes like Toast and Pat Jubert were I mean, if they were in SoCal, they'd have been like super pros for street back then, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that video's pretty sick. So
Just added it to my watch later.
yeah, it's a fun one.
Hell yeah. So, what has it been like seeing all of the different like generations that have come up throughout like your life in Portland or in Oregon even?
Um, it's been pretty cool. I mean, I think about it sometimes because like where I first grew up, I grew up in Prineville, Oregon. It's like central, like the middle of the city. It's just a little cowboy town. Um, and I was lucky enough that the city let us build a skate. Like me and my buddies have had a skate park there since '89, and it's still there.
Whoa.
They let us build wood ramps, and then when I graduated high school and we couldn't maintain them, they built these horrible metal ramps. And then Dreamland just came in, and they made the park twice as big and made it a cement park. So that town actually has the oldest skate park in the state, other than the '70s one in Coos Bay that you'll get shot at with rock salt if you go there.
Oh.
Uh, but so we always had that. So dudes would come ride once in a while with us. So we were pretty lucky with that. And then when I got 16, I started riding in Bend with a few of my older friends. And the first dudes I saw kind of come up was Ryan Scher and Ian Monroe, because they both grew up in Bend and were little racer kids.
Whoa.
So when we'd be riding street around, they'd come find us. And I mean, I love them both. They're two of my great friends through life. But they were just a little annoying racer kids where you're like, you know, I was like 16, so they were probably like 13 or 12, and you're like, yo, dudes, we're trying to ride here.
Yeah.
But so those were the first dudes that I remember kind of blowing up, and then I moved to Eugene, and then we started just making the videos, and I remember like Chris Iman from the Seattle area. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Mm-hmm.
He started doing kind of good at some dirt circuits. You know, he'd go, so you were like, oh, our buddy over there is doing good, you know, and kind of see him going. And I mean, Asado was kind of the first person I knew that just blew up into like a superstar. You know, it was like he went from just being a dude you're like, oh, that's that really good, insanely good dude from the scene up north, to like, I saw him at the Worlds 2 years after I met him at Nelson, and he was pro for Schwinn, and I think he won the World's mini ramp. And you're like, whoa, dude, you've came a long way in 2 years, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. I mean, you kind of see people go up, and then everybody's time will kind of come back down. And I mean, like if you look at REA, and there's a couple other not little kids, just dudes that you're like, all right, this dude can do it, you know, if you want. And there's always dudes that can do it if they want, but some dudes don't want to either. You know,
Right.
Some dudes are just happy just riding. So, but it's cool. I mean, I remember when Chester Blacksmith started coming around, and Chet was just had the worst bike and stuff, and he was just the most fearless rider I've ever seen in my life.
That's so
You know,
awesome.
not to mention just being an awesome dude, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely one name I'm familiar with. Just incredible riding.
Oh, Chester's just, yeah, he just came in. He's building up a race bike. Him and his little dude are going to start racing. So,
Oh, it's only a matter of time before the freestyle comes back.
well, yeah, with the little dude. And Chet's been riding a little. He's got 3 kids now, so he's in dad mode and stuff. But, yeah, I mean, that dude, amazing bike rider, awesome person, and yeah, he's one of a kind.
Yeah. This is
So
what I love about seeing all these people who are like coming back into BMX, is that you have people who are just absolutely incredible that for whatever reason fell out. Now maybe they had a kid, and their
Yeah.
kid's getting old enough to ride, and they're like, oh, I want the kid to ride too. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull out my bike, and then I'm gonna ride it once and realize that my bars are way too short and it's way too heavy, and I'm gonna go to Goods BMX and get a new bike, and we're gonna ride together.
Yeah, I mean, and it's probably all over I mean, I think there's all over the country. There's so many dudes with kids now that are just starting to rip, you know?
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I know even my buddies, I have some friends in Japan, and I see dudes that have kids over there that rip, you know? They'll be like little flatlanders that are like,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, how are you this good at 9? You know, like, So
Yeah, that's incredible. And I, I I love seeing, the situation with like Doyle getting on S&M and
yeah,
Nasty being on S&M and Biz and all these guys who are familiar names to the people who are going to be coming back into BMX or
yeah.
already did. And I think it's just a thing coming full circle that is amazing to watch happen.
And writers like that should be appreciated.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, I've been saying that since, the early 2000s because I wanted to see dudes that I knew still were writing be appreciated, like a Brian Blyther,
Mm-hmm.
on Wilkerson, a Dominguez, or, dudes that you're like, this dude still rips. Like, why? Sometimes with BMX media, and BMX media is way different now. It's more in the hands of the people than it was before,
Mm-hmm.
and there's good and bad things with that. Um, but it's like sometimes they'd be like, well, this dude hasn't won a contest for this, but it's like, the dude's got good style. He's got good style. Like, and dudes that are still riding, I still associate more with those riders than I do with other riders.
Right.
Your age, you probably, I don't know how old you are. I'm assuming you're like close to 30 or early 30s or late
You're,
20s.
you're good. 29.
Okay. But you probably associate more with a Doyle or a Chester or a Biz because that was dudes that were like there for your coming up and, you know, going through everything. And
Yeah.
maybe more like, Taj or a Keith Trainer, maybe when you were really young or something, like,
I'm a little weird with mine because I grew up, and this is the reason why had to apologize for not being well read, is because growing up riding, I didn't watch videos,
yeah, no, it's
and
fun.
I didn't. The only people who I really knew who they were was Scotty Kramer, and then there was the people in the 2006 Dirty East contest video from the Flow.
Okay.
And other than that, it was just the people who rode at my local park, which were all like incredible at the time. Everybody is doing crazy stuff every single session in this.
Was that early 2000s Ohio?
Yeah, I started in 2006, and for whatever
Yeah, so
reason,
yeah,
it was just craziness
yeah,
in this one little town.
the Ohio scene. I mean, I feel like the Ohio scene from like 98. I mean, I'm sure I don't know what's going on now there, but I mean, I do remember though about like 98 till like, you know, well on, it always had dudes coming out, or if I'd go on a road fools trip and we'd go through like we'd stop at the Flow or
Mm-hmm.
Chengdu or something, you'd be like, whoa, dudes
Yeah.
are really good here, like
Yeah, yeah. But to get to the point of what I was saying, it was just like I the people that I looked up to when I started riding all the way up until I started like making videos that people wanted to watch
yeah.
were the people local to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's what kind of what you were fed, what you were given, so that's what
Hmm.
you hold on to.
Yeah,
But
but
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say most other people who actually watch videos and stuff, the names you listed definitely are the ones.
Yeah, I mean, though I just feel like if I'm riding and that dude's riding, I'm still a paying consumer to the BMX industry.
Yep.
And I do think sometimes the BMX industry puts so much, which granted that it is a big core, but so much weight on like, it's even going down to like 8-year-olds, but like the 14 to 21-year-old range.
Mm-hmm.
Which you're like, that's great, but I'm looking around and I'm like, there's so many dudes that are older too that you're not even giving like 5% of that attention. Dudes that have money, that want to spend money,
Yep.
and they're not given anything to spend the money on. This year, I mean, granted, you could probably talk to some of the dudes who have done BMX books lately, like Bill Batchelor or Jared Sony, or Mark Noble, with all
Yeah.
those BMX books. Those dudes have done really well with those books because there's a market for them, and there's a lot of dudes who are still riding that are like, oh my God, I'm so hungry to spend money on BMX on something I want.
Mm-hmm.
Give me that, give me that, give me that,
Yep. The Haro bikes.
Yeah, I mean, that's what my daily rider is, a Haro Master off the 1990 Zolatone, because my favorite bikes are bikes with bash guards because it makes me feel like that's what I rode in high school.
Yeah.
And now when I have a bike with a bash guard and I look down, I'm like, huh, I have a bike with a bash guard. And I just smile really big.
Yeah.
It makes me happy to look down and have a bike makes me feel kind of like I did when I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that happens for every generation. And it's like, let's keep making those, but let's keep making bikes with 12-inch back ends. Let's, you know, I'm happy to see that there's more options for trail bikes, you know.
Yeah.
It's like BMX is big, it's broad. It's like let's let it all in, you know. And not don't get mad at one group because they're not doing what your group's doing, you know.
Right. It can all exist. And I think that part of this is because BMX is a young enough sport, hobby, passion, obsession, whatever you want to call it, that the people who are the oldest who are doing it are the guys who are like starting BMX as like freestyle
Yeah, I mean, you can still
BMX.
find dudes that are racing and some dudes that are still riding freestyle that have been there from the beginning, you know?
Right. And what I was getting at with that is that BMX is still learning. It's not basketball or a
Yeah,
sport that's been around for 500 years. So, like, we're learning that, yes, you can probably still make, like, the Haro reissue bikes or things like that and support older riders, and it does work. Like, you're not going
yeah,
to kill everything by doing that.
yeah. I mean, I see those bikes around. I've sold those bikes. I mean, I'm sure you've seen dudes riding the Haros or
Oh,
a
yeah.
GT or, you know, Colony did that Ozone ripoff because Ozone's out of business. But to dudes my age, Ozone's like the grail bike because they had the dopest team in like the late 80s, early 90s, you know?
Mm.
So, yeah, I mean, I could count on my hand. I mean, I'm lucky they're not making more retro bikes, you know, because they made other bikes that were like ones that tug at my heartstrings. I mean, I'd be screwed. Like if they made a modern bully with a bash guard, game over.
Yeah.
Like it was one of the crappiest bikes because RL Osborne kind of got screwed when he went to Taiwan, and they did that to a lot of people that lie what material it was made out of.
Yeah.
But at the time, and still to this time, it's one of the prettiest bikes to look at. You know, just the lines and the angles on it. And I know that's me going extreme BMX nerd talking about how a bike looks, but that's the level I'm at on things.
You're not the only one, is what you're
No,
getting
no, I
at,
know
though.
I'm
You
not.
know, like, so there's a reason why that could make sense.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, all those make sense. New bikes makes. I mean, the BMX industry sometimes really will hold itself back, you know, and it's good to see people get a little out of their comfort zone and try something, and see that it does good.
Yeah, and I hope it happens more. I think BMX is starting to realize that, yeah, we can, you know, help support some of
Yeah,
these older guys. And also, you know, the reason that you do that is partially because it helps you with the other older guys that still ride. Sorry, I just got totally distracted from our BMX says, yeah, Shad, rumor has it that you were present for the Ben Huckey dinosaur hand plant can. Did he pull it and why didn't you film it?
so I mean, if you want to get into that, I'll get into it.
Let's do it. Why not?
Yeah, so Ben did pull that. I wasn't there that day. Him and Jared Sony were there. Uh, we can go over a couple things. Ben is an amazing bike rider.
Mm-hmm.
So, secondly, Ben can hand plant that dinosaur in his sleep all the time. Jared, not really. He's just a hard ass old school BMX rider. He would never let something go up like that. Like that would be against all of his, you know, morals to post something like that. Two of my buddies were there. My buddy Marty McFarlane, old school vert dude, still rides. My buddy Matt was there. Both of them saw him do it. Ben was riding for the shop then. It was like right before. It was like literally weeks before he got on Dan's comp.
Mm-hmm.
And we were starting to film a Welcome to Goods edit. You know, and Ben and I have been friends since he was like really young. And we went there to film it one day. And I mean, all my tapes are thrown just in these things. I just pull them out. So we go there and we're gonna film it. And Ben's like, it took me quite a few tries for Jared. He goes, but we'll get her. So he starts doing it, and first few ones he does hand plant can, lands, and just puts his foot next to his pedal.
Mm-hmm.
To where you're like, oh, he can do, you know, where you're like, you can do
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
He's got the whole motion. He's just got to stomp it. I think he got a shinner, and then we literally got rained out. It just started raining. And we're like, we'll come back and get it. It wasn't even a thing. We're like, we know we can come back and get it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll keep working on the project. like literally a week later, Ben's on Dan's comp, and we never did anything with it. And to be honest, we never even thought, because I think no one up here thought it was that big a deal, because we'd see Ben hand plant that thing all the time.
Yeah.
Dudes have done hand plant bar spins. Dudes have done all these things. So we didn't really think, oh, Ben doing a hand plant can was really that. I mean, it's an amazing trick, and the cover was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But we never thought that it was like a bigger thing than it was, because we're like, of course Ben can do that. Ben,
Yeah.
And that was right at that time where no one really had video on their phones. It was right before then.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of dudes have had covers before that were never in video. Joe Rich doing the Fufanu at the Primo compound back in the day. Our BMX, but I know Ryan wasn't there then. But Ride ran a cover of oh shoot, hold on. They ran a cover of Jerry Bagley. Not hating on Jerry Bagley. Jerry's super nice, always been very nice to me when I met him. Doing a tail whip from picnic table to picnic table, and he stomps his foot on it. It's at the end of Mosh Easy Style. They ran that as a cover. That's on video, him not pulling it. No one gives Jerry Bagley shit,
Yeah.
But people, I think, like, people like to give Hucky shit, but Hucky pulled it. Like, dudes can say he didn't. They want to hate on Ben. Oh, Ben had one of the sickest covers ever. I'm going to hate on him. But it's like two legit dudes that I know who would never lie about that said they were there.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Sony wouldn't lie about that. He was there. Ben, watch him ride. He's good enough. And I saw him come damn near close when we went back to film it. So, and I have this conversation with lots of dudes. They'll come down. They'll be like, did Ben pull that? I'm like, what do you think? Like what world did Ben go around faking? I mean, he's not Fred Blood, and only old dudes are going to get that. But Fred Blood, which he was still an okay bike rider, and he was a pro roller skater in the early 80s. He rode for General, but he was known for posing photos back in the 80s, flatland photos. But Ben, he did crazy. Ben did everything, and he's so good. When people just want to act like he couldn't do this one trick that he could do 90% of it every time, other than the can, it's like, come on, guys.
I almost feel like, and this might be a hot take here, but I almost feel like saying that Ben Hucky didn't land that trick is like when people say that they hate Nickelback.
I mean, yeah, it's turned into more. I think half the dudes even do it. Like, I've talked to Charlie about it. I've talked Catfish about it. I think they like the idea of just posting it because the memes are funny. Ben's like, that's funny,
Yeah.
But it's like, if you're really doubting his bike skills, or if he did it and the dude's involved, come on.
Yeah.
And then there's so many, and literally, if people are like, why didn't he film it on his phone? It's like, well, look at the year on it. Really, no one. It was like another year and a half or so before people really started having cameras on their phone.
Yeah.
Instagram, I think it just started then, and it was just pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So
what year would that have been?
I want to say, I honestly, is it that might be 2010?
Yeah, dude. I mean, the iPhone literally came out in 2007.
Yeah, it could be wrong. It could be like 2011, but I mean, Ben was on Sputnik.
Yeah.
And that's been a while.
Yeah.
He was on Sputnik, but I mean, dudes always want something to chat about it, but there's lots of covers that were never in videos, and I think there's lots of covers that didn't get, but there's lots of ads. I mean, we talked about Asado a bunch, and I love Dave, but there's that Demolition ad with him doing the Canadian on the fence. He didn't pull that.
I just learned that recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, and I don't think Dave was happy that ad got ran either. But I know he came really close to pulling that, but he didn't pull it, but no one's going to go to Sato about that stuff. It's like, which of course you shouldn't. It's Dave Asado, but it's like, it's like, but to underestimate, Ben's skills, it's just like, come on, guys.
May 2010 was the cover.
Yeah. So then I think that got shot in the fall of 2009, because you got to think about how magazines work then.
Mm-hmm. Right, it had to have been ahead of
I
time.
want to say it was the fall of 2009 because it was starting to be our rainy season was starting. I know it was about to roll over into fall, you know, and when we went to film it, and that's why we got rained out. So he did that in 2009.
So, did I hear you correctly in saying that you have footage of almost pulled attempts?
Somewhere. I mean, if
Oh
the
my
tape's still there,
goodness.
I literally have a box of like 300. I mean, one day I'll pull it and I'll post up the raw footage on Snakebite.
It's
I've
going to be
been
amazing.
I've been like Ben. I mean, Ben doesn't. He has a bike. He doesn't. You know, he does. He has a kid. He does lots of other things. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man. I go. You could literally break
Oh my
BMX one day.
God.
Just went and did that, and just like posted it on your Instagram, like bink, like didn't say anything, just bink.
No caption, no nothing. Oh my. Can you imagine?
Like, don't say nothing. Just post it, and then be like, I'm done.
Yeah, post it with a
But
microphone.
he's like I don't he's like I don't need to do that. He's like he goes that's not why I ride. That's not why I rode. You know, it's
Mhm.
like so which I get it. You know.
Yeah. Regardless, it's a fun conversation to have.
Oh, I love no, it's a great conversation. Dude, they're super fun. I mean, like, but yeah, anybody that's like doubting it, it's like, come on, guys.
Okay. Is there any more of these like BMX urban legend or conspiracy type things that have gone around?
I mean, I don't know any more like covers. I do know from what I've heard, this is more for old heads like me, is you're familiar with Go magazine back in the day.
Yeah, heard of it.
So the second to last issue of Go was the famous cover of Dave Clymer carving the pools at the Nude Bowl.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen that one. You can type it in. It's an awesome cover. He's on a yellow Holmes, the bolt-on bash guard, got an American flag helmet, wheelie carving over the stairs at the Nude Bowl. Now back then, BMX was dead, and GT, and not hate. This is nothing to go at GT. GT does a lot for BMX, and GT is one of my favorite brands. I'm like I grew up loving Josh White. I mean, look right there's a '86 GT World Tour on my wall, like, but they ran so many ads in Go that I heard that the Wizard Publications had to run by who they were putting on the cover because they paid so much for ads. And Wizard got sick of having to post just GT, Auburn, Robinson riders, or whatever in that thing. And they posted up this Dave Clymer one, which S&M was ruffling a lot of feathers then, and GT came back and told them if they do something like that again, they're going to pull their advertising. And then I heard the guys at Wizard like, we're going to put whoever we want on the cover. And this is what I've heard. I'm sure other dudes are like, well, close, but they told them we're going to put whoever we want on the cover. Just because you're an advertiser doesn't mean you can dictate how we set up the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
They pulled all their ads and the magazine went under.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that's why, from what I've heard, why Go has went out of business back in the day.
Wow. I mean, well, that's the ultimate, there you go.
And GT's like ran by different this is no hate at GT. It's like,
no, this is a fun urban legend in BMX.
And even if it happened, you're like, fucking geez, hella power move.
Right? Like, damn.
Christmas. So, but that cover, go look at that Go cover.
Oh, I pulled it up already.
One of the best BMX covers ever.
I already pulled it up and showed it while you were talking.
Okay.
Freaking sweet.
Yeah, and that's when Dave Clymer was kind of going from a AA pro racer to like more of a freestyle contest dude, which, there's another dude that probably should be in the Hall of Fame because he has a rich racing resume and a rich freestyle resume. Not quite, obviously not. I mean, Brian Foster's kind of got the same thing. I mean, Clymer's on a whole different little thing, but he's done enough in my eyes where he should probably be in the BMX Hall of Fame. I don't know when, but it's like hopefully not 2050.
Yeah. To speak on this cover, this is shot at a time way, way, way before digital. So they had no idea that this is what they had until they went back and got the film done.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, that's how it all was back then. I mean, I think that was a Brad McDonald shot cover. I don't think it was a Spike Jones. I think Spike had kind of already stepped out and was starting to shoot some skate stuff and do music videos. I think that's a Brad McDonald cover.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Brad, that he got to shoot that era, which is one of my favorite eras, from like 90 to like 94, when, kind of like BMX died, and it was right before, up to when the X Games started, when everything kind of came back. And that to me is a very special time in BMX. Like it just, it feels awesome. The bikes are just barely put together, and you're trying to make them do way more than they should.
Yeah.
So whenever you see somebody doing something on one of those bikes, you're like, oh shoot, you're really going for it.
Yeah. Oh my, that is like terrifying to think about.
Yeah, have you ever seen that climber clip? It's in the old 70s video, Unlock Your BMX, which has got a great Ian Morris section in it. Like, Ian's, like, I think still on GT, maybe part of S&M, but like where he's starting kind of his first backward rails and stuff. But one of the first backyard jams, they always had those chasm jumps. And climber tries flipping. I mean, the jump was probably like, back then with a flat pedal run up, it's probably like 40 feet or something.
Oh my god!
And dudes are just starting to flip things. Like, and he almost flips this thing. And the way they filmed it is it's zoomed in on his eyes, and he's just like, looks like he's been up for like 7 days, and he might have been. And he's just, and then it just pans out, and he just tries this enormous flip. So if you haven't watched Unlock Your BMX, look it up on YouTube. It's awesome.
It sounds awesome. Sounds worth watching.
I think there's some footage of Baz Keep doing a backflip at like 11 years old.
Oh my god, that's so sick. Like, you see all these kids who are amazing, like the Flatland kids in Japan you were talking about earlier. And
yeah.
I mean, how much of that existed back then? You say Baz Keep doing a flip at 11.
I think, well, I mean, Mira was kind of one of the first. Mira, Eben Krakow, Scotty Freeman. There were kids out there that, were Prodigy kids, and I'm sure there were way more that just some dudes just never made it because they lived out in the middle of nowhere or something.
Right.
But nowadays you get to see them more because of how social media and stuff works. Like,
right.
But I mean, Mira was definitely there, and I mean, Eben and I are friends, and he's probably gonna be like, "Come on, dude!" Like, but Eben was one of those dudes at 15, still going as high as pros, and then Scotty Freeman was kind of like that when he was on the Skyway team as a flatlander, and then he kind of stepped away around like 90, but these dudes were like very young kids riding way above, their age level.
And that's existed forever. It's definitely it's just naturally going to exist more now because of the accessibility of things.
And the bike's working better for them,
Yeah, that too.
The bike's fitting them, like, like you had like, I mean, back then the bikes were still smaller, but the bike geometry in the 80s was weird. I mean, the bikes were little, but you were still like struggling to, I bet you like Mira could probably air 6 feet, but probably could barely bunny hop that bike up a 2-stair because of how he was very small, like, because
yeah,
I remember when I got my first freestyle bike, I could do a fair amount of flatland tricks, but I couldn't bunny hop. And in hindsight, it wasn't, I thought I sucked, but it wasn't that I sucked. It's like I had a bike with mags, some mid-80s geometry, and I was the skinniest little 12, 13-year-old that I just couldn't muscle that bike up yet until I got a little bigger,
Yep, and BMX hadn't figured out geometry yet.
No, they didn't know anything. I mean, you're riding a bike with like an 18 3/4 to maybe a 19 1/4 to 19 1/2 inch top tube and a 15 1/4 back end.
Oh, geez. That's insane to think about trying to bunny hop something with that long of a rear end and that short of a front end.
I mean, when I was in high school, I had a Wilkerston Airlines, and I could bunny hop that over like, those round plastic tables that are like in front of cafes, those round plastic ones that they'll have. Like, I used to bunny hop those all the time in my town on a bike with that geometry.
That's crazy.
That probably weighed like 30. Well, at the bash guard, that bike probably weighed like 36 pounds, being realistic, But I'd bunny hop it all the time.
I mean, I guess there's just something to be said about, like, that's all you have, that's what you know, that's what you just
Well,
do
I
it
think the new
with.
geometry makes it where kids can. We actually had a conversation about that the other day. I think people can bunny hop higher nowadays because the bikes work better. And
Mm-hmm.
if you watch a lot of older dudes bunny hop, you're doing it straight between your legs. You're going, you're maxing out as high as you can.
Yeah.
The highest I've ever done, like on one of those height bars, was 44, 45.
Damn.
And I think dudes do like 50 now, probably. I think
Yeah. I,
2 is the 52 the
I was
record?
what I was going to say. I
Yeah.
think Brock
But
did
now
some.
a lot of dudes do it up on the side to where they can pull that bike up even higher.
Right.
And I just think the way the bikes are set up, it makes it easier for those bikes to move around and get them out of the way.
Yeah, yeah, it totally makes sense. And since we're talking about older bikes now, you also one of your other things that you do is collect bikes.
Yeah.
You went,
I mean, I just I started the first old school, like after I'd been riding a long time. The first old school bike I'd gotten, I got an '87 Hot Pink GT from some dudes when I first opened the shop in 2005. A dude came in with it and was like, "Do you want to buy this?" And I bought it for like $70. That
nice.
bike nowadays is probably like you could probably sell for $3,500.
Good investment.
Uh, yeah. Uh, but I just was like, oh. And then my buddy Gary, who runs BMX Museum,
Mm.
he lived 2 blocks from the old shop, old goods spot. We've been friends forever. And then I just started. I remember I got a bully because I wanted a bully because I had one when I was younger, and it just that bug started catching, and yeah, now I have like 30 bikes.
That's so sick.
Together and not together. Like some of them are finished, some aren't. Um, I'm kind of once I finish some of these bikes, I'm kind of just where I'm working on. I want to just work on history bikes. Like I'm starting to collect parts for Bruce's X Games bike. Um,
Does
I
that
have Rob
mean
Siggety's prototype 2-hip big boy that I'm trying. I'm going to eventually get back to the way he had it set up. Um, so I just want to get bikes that like that a little more sentimental, or they're a little more meaning to them.
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely something that and you should cover that on YouTube too cuz I know
Yeah,
you make some
I've been posting
videos.
up. I just was like, I'm like, I would want to watch a video like this, so I'll start making them. And sometimes I rush them a little, and sometimes they're actually, I think, fun. But I do like vintage BMX builds and like what projects I'm working on, and those actually
Yeah.
get pretty good. Our channel's not, some crazy powerhouse channel, but I'll get a lot of comments, a lot of likes. Dudes will be like, hey, like one dude saw I was building up this RL20B, this red line, and I was trying to build up like how like Pete Augustin's bike would have felt like in 1990.
Mhm.
It's really shitty looking. I like my bikes to be like look like it was your friend's bike and you had them in your yard, like real riders' bikes. I don't want
Mm.
these like purpley pink stupid bikes you see all over Instagram from dudes that don't ride. Like, I mean, bikes for that color, but these dudes go crazy.
Yeah.
But some dude in like New Zealand's like putting together an RL20B. He's like, oh man, you inspired me to get this bike going, and it's like, so it's like cool. I'll just keep posting these videos. It's fun finding weird bikes, and some dudes have reached out. Like I have in the shop. We'll probably do a video on it soon. We started one. My buddy Matt on Instagram, he's Ruckus Matt. He's like a big mid-school collector. We've got Van Homan's prototype Mean Street that he tail up the snake run at Kona here in a box.
Oh,
All the parts to
damn.
build it.
What?
So we'll be doing that on the channel. Yeah, just I just finished up one of Jeremy Davis, who was one of the original riders for metal. I finished up. He had one metal left, like 3/4 of the bike, and we redid it for him. He was like one of my best friends, so we just did a little. That one wasn't too much to get done, but we did a little video on that one. So those are always fun. I think it kind of started. I put together like Josh White's last BMX bike he owned. It was like sitting in a backyard, and Josh was one of my favorite riders, so I got the bike all going for him again.
That's so sick. And I think people just love to see those types of things.
Yeah,
Uh that reminded me too, just when you said talking about those videos and stuff, like one video I still get comments on is there's a guy in Florida, Alex Lepak. He has one of Van Homan's frames from Criminal Mischief.
yeah,
And so like that's and a whole bunch of other older bikes and frames and stuff too, and we just did a video talking about them, and people still comment on that
Oh yeah,
somewhat regularly.
I need to do one. I want to do it when Vic comes here. I have Vic Murphy's. I bought from him like 10 years ago the frame from, the famous 1 foot tabletop photo of him.
Yeah, I talked about your video on that on my news video one time.
Okay, yeah, so I have that frame. Talking with Vic and Brad Blanchard, I rebuilt the bike exactly how he had it in that photo.
Yeah.
And it's here in the shop. And I need to do a video on it, but Vic usually comes through every summer on a tour, so I want to do one with Vic, of him riding around the bike. But that's one of the crazier like history bikes I have,
Yeah.
I have Dave Asato's prototype Schwinn signature frame that never came out. That he did like in his interview, the tail whip on. I think he did the first tail whip Fufanu on it. It's like in Road Fools 9, Road Fools 8, the one they rode mirror bars on.
The history of
I had that bike.
Somebody asked, Brody Gwilliam, he lives up in Canada, asked, doesn't Shad have a sick Miron build from 94-ish?
So I had a Schwinn. It wasn't Jay's bike, but I had one of those Schwinn builds. John Bolgens at Haro rode one of those forever. And John and I are buddies. And he knew I had it, and I wasn't partial to it. I just had it built up with basic stuff. Built it kind of look like Jay's bike did. But John really wanted it, and John's, he's a collector like me, and I knew it meant more to him, Yeah. So we traded some stuff, and because he likes building up, excuse me, bikes like he had. I think he's trying to build up all of his old bikes.
Yeah.
So he has it now. I do have a photo with Miron sitting on it, which makes me pretty happy.
That's sick.
Jay's, he whenever he's in Portland, he usually stops by the shop. He was here like about a month ago.
Nice.
Years back, he came to the shop, and I have a photo of him sitting on that Schwinn, and he was like, "How the hell did I ride these things?"
That's so funny.
That bike's got that bike. I've tried riding it at Skatepark, and I don't know how him and Asato and those dudes rode those bikes. They were crazy. Even that prototype Asato Schwinn here, they just ride. There's just so much to it. And I rode like a 2-hip stout boy and stuff back in the day. I rode beefy bikes, but they're just, I don't know how they did stuff on those things,
Yeah. Going back to the Vic Murphy thing, the ultimate video would be packing that thing up, taking it to the spot, and having him just try,
Yeah, the spot's still there. There's a dude on the museum I actually got my bully from. He actually, at the BMX Society show last year, won best old school freestyle bike because he has Chris Day's Dirt Bros. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Chris Day, but he's like a flatland pioneer, a street pioneer. He always one of those dudes kind of under the radar, but he pushed BMX super hard. But he had a Dirt Bros, which was a Skyway TA with a homemade bash guard on it.
Nice.
And he won best in show with that bike because he got it and brought it back to exactly how Chris had it. And he sent me photos of that bike at the curb cut because he lives in San Diego.
Nice.
Yeah, it would be cool. Vic lives in Tennessee now, so I think it'd be pretty hard, but it'll be cool. And I do have, everything's old on it. I don't have new tires on it. It's all, I try to keep it vintage tires is a hard game.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it's fully rideable. So we'll do a video on it eventually. I just don't want to post one up and like jump the gun because I think it'd be way more special with Vic.
It's got to be done right with something like that for sure. Damn it, what was I gonna say? Maybe it can be in like you said you get like $100 every couple months. 6 years from now, you guys can fund it.
Yeah, Vic comes through like with his missionary work, doing shows and stuff. Him and like Dustin or somebody will roll through Portland, and they always hit me up and we go grab food. If you'd have told 14-year-old me that Vic would call my phone ever, my head would have probably popped off. So
that's awesome. It's so crazy. And like going all the way back to that blueprint thing, you know, like that was that kind of the catalyst for things really taking off.
Yeah, I mean, I had shot a couple photos for Ride before that. Like,
Okay.
um, I really wanted to shoot. I mean, I did shoot photos for magazines. I mean, I'm not like Delecky or Jeff Z or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or any of those dudes. But I can shoot an okay photo. But I'd shot a couple photos, and that's kind of, I was just a dude. My whole goal when writing was like I just wanted to get one photo in a magazine, and I thought I did good. So I did way better than I thought. I
Yeah.
shot photos, and I'd shot a few photos to the magazine then, and but the blueprint thing, yeah, I mean, I feel like just a lot of it didn't really register till a few years later where people would be like, oh, I'd be on like a prop strip, people would be like, hey, you made blueprint, that was awesome, and I'm like, oh, thank you. I'm like, a bunch of us helped make it, but yes, I mean, I was, I filmed
Yeah.
most of it, but thank you,
That's
so
so cool.
yeah, I mean, I feel like it was a catalyst for a lot of dudes up here. So
That's so sick. You were mentioning too when we were talking about that how you had some people watch it. Were they watching the full video?
a blueprint.
Yeah, when you were showing people at Woodward.
No, I showed it. If I find, I'm sure I have it still. No, we made a promo. We made like a 5 minute like promo reel thing just to
Okay.
show our friends what we'd been working on. So like we were like I'd worked I'm trying to figure out my years at Woodward. I think I worked 1 year. We were filming, and we were like good friends, like Aaron Bostrom,
Mm,
and like I worked with Chris Stoffer, and like kind of a lot of dudes from that. Daryl Nah, like Daryl and I were super good buddies at camp. So we made this like thing so I could take camp and show the dudes like, hey, this is what we're working on.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, and then it just kind of went from there.
I got you. I was just connecting like, man, sitting people down to watch like a full length video and all these people were doing it is so crazy to think about in 2022 where people are like, hey, watch this Instagram clip and then they might not even pay attention to it.
Yeah, well, it's pretty crazy. I mean, both of that video and the friend between my legs, both of them we rented like indie movie theaters.
Yeah,
But the blueprint one we did at Hollywood Theater here in Portland, which is a really big, awesome old school theater. And
nice.
I think we sold it out twice.
Wow.
It's kind of crazy.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
but yeah, I mean, so we did that, I guess.
That's so cool. That if anybody ever hears this and you make a full length video, get it premiered at a theater, please. It is so much easier than you would think to do. It
Yeah,
is.
there's always little indie ones and stuff that are always like, oh yeah, we can do it on this. I mean, at least in Portland. I mean, I know Portland's kind of like the indie city, or but I
Yeah.
know there's maybe not in little towns, but if you're in a college town or something, there's always those theaters that'll work with you.
Yeah, and I even did the full length video I made in a Cinemark theater. Like there's
Yeah. Oh
literally
yeah,
a
yeah.
form on their website for
Oh yeah,
playing
there is this
your
there. Yeah.
movie at a Cinemark movie theater, and it was the easiest process ever. I've talked about it on here before, but I'll say it again so that anyone who might see this and makes a full length, like just check it out because all you do is fill out the form, then you contact the person there, and literally she was like, I'm gonna need to see like something to see and approve what you made. And so I was like, well, it's not fully done yet. And she's like, oh, that's okay. I only need to see a couple minutes. So I sent just like 2 sections and got an email back in 5 minutes. I was like, okay, you're good.
Yeah.
It cost
Yeah, no, it's
$300.
super fun. I mean, it'll kind of put you on the spot if you made the video, but it's still really fun for
It's
everybody.
worth it. It's
Yeah.
so worth it because you bring a whole scene together whenever you do that, and that alone makes it worth it. And it was $325 or something like that.
Yeah, I think ours, I mean, this is 2005. I bet you that theater got redone by now. Since then, it's like beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But I think ours was like $400 back then.
Which is
But it's like
so,
we charged everybody like $3 to get in,
yeah.
and we like I mean, I remember we ended up with a little extra. Like, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, make it worth your time and just having this amazing memory out of it.
Yeah. No, it's super fun to do that. So
And yeah, just I'll repeat myself again, way easier than you might think.
Way easier than making the video.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Uh, so another thing I wanted to bring up tonight, we're on a podcast right now. There was the Snakebite BMX podcast,
Yep.
which I listened to every single one of whenever it came out, and I want more.
So I did one with Lee Ramsdale, and this is going to sound so stupid and generic. That puppy that I was talking about earlier, I would edit him on my old computer. So I was like, I'd gotten a new laptop, and I was like, okay, I need to edit this up and get it over to Will at Dig, because Dig and I would do him, kind of a joint thing with him. The dog ate part of my computer and ate my charger cord, which, I mean, he was like 9-month-old puppy is going to do that. He's like a pit bull lab blue heeler mix. It's like, yes, that thing will eat something.
Naturally.
He ate my passport like 3 days before this. So I was like, at the computer, the computer's kind of not messed up, but it's not on. But the cord, I'm like, it's like one of those old magnet ones. And I'm like, I'll just order one. I'll order an Apple one. So it works. It didn't work. So then I had to hit up friends and try to find one. Finally made the whole thing work, transferred stuff over. The podcast is done. The guy, it's already go. I think the guys at Dig are just finishing up their year-end magazine, and then we'll post that. The pandemic is really what screwed it up. Like I wasn't like a, I don't do video ones. I just sit with a recorder and like to face to face. I may have to change the way I do it, because just the world's kind of changed since I was doing those. But that Lee one should be up in a while. I talked to Chester. Chester and I are actually going to do one. I was going to do it with him. I was going to do it with him tomorrow, but we're going to wait, because I like to post up on the Snakebite Instagram, get questions for the end of the thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, we'll just wait until they're ready, until the Lee one drops, so that we can do that. So hopefully I'm going to be getting back into it. I mean, it's I don't think ever going to be like a super consistent thing. It's just like, if dudes are there that I'm excited. Again, it's me being selfish. It's me being wanting, like, I'm like, I want to talk to Blyther. I want to talk to Pete Augustin. I want to find out things about these riders that I looked up to. I want to talk to Volker, and then I've talked to other people, but it just kind of pans from that. But it's really all comes from a selfish spot on me, that it's just me wanting to nerd out with my heroes,
Hey.
But I do, like chess. It's always weird for me when it's like a close friend. Like I've done Bruce, I've done Casey Badger. It's like I've been there for a lot of the stories. But I think people enjoy those because we have a different camaraderie than like if I'm talking to another dude. But yeah, they should be coming back. I mean, people hit me up about it all the time, and I want to do them, and I'm going to do them. It just, I have a lot of stuff going on.
Clearly, we've been
and a
talking
lot of people
about
don't
it.
come to the Pacific Northwest. I mean, people do, but it's not like, where if you're somewhere where people are just rolling through all the time, where you're like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
And some of the new dudes, I don't really know what to ask some of the new dudes, where I was like, oh yeah, we got this dude. I mean, some of the dudes I know, but you could probably put some dude in front of me, and I'm like, shoot, I know this dude's riding, but I don't know anything about him, where I feel like I'd put a stale conversation out there, Well,
that's not your niche of the podcast thing. It's
no.
It's totally what you're saying. Wouldn't you call it selfish? I don't call it selfish. It's just it's just what you want to do, and like that's literally why we're here right now. I realized when I was on the Snakebite channel, I was like, oh my god, all these people who watch me are somewhat older and probably came up when these videos he keeps posting came out. Let's get some more people over there, and I want to learn about what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I just post stuff. I mean, it does. We get a few followers a day, and I'm like, oh, cool, and people seem psyched in the comments, and I'm like, oh, I'll just keep plugging away. But yeah, hopefully we'll do some more podcasts. I mean, there's still plenty of dudes I'd like to chat with.
Yeah,
I do feel like I kind of have to do maybe what we're doing. I don't know if I'd post up a video one.
That's okay.
But like just to get the audio, because there's some people overseas that I would love to talk to that I just know it won't happen,
Yeah, using technology as a way to break through the barrier of just the fact that you're like not like I don't know if you and I when or if we'll ever meet in person, but we get to do this right now
Yeah.
and it's a good chat. And before we get off any kind of podcast talk, not that I want to, but Kurt Rowell, I don't know if you know
Oh
Kurt.
no, I know Kurt really well. Yeah, Kurt's awesome. He's been a big part of the Eastern Washington scene forever. Like,
Well,
he's a super OG dude.
he's wondering when the Sean Yarl Snakebite podcast is coming out.
I've brought it up to Sean a couple times, and Sean is kind of. I would love to do it, Sean. We're pretty good friends, and Sean, I met him at that Nelson contest when I was talking about Sato earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and I was telling him I almost moved to Austin, and I almost moved to San Diego about that same time, and I was like, I want to move to San Diego and ride the Dirt Bros, and he's a Dirt Bro,
Yeah.
and he started laughing about it, and then he walked over to his truck and gave me a copy of Cheese that had just came out.
That's funny.
And Sean, I think, is a little shy. Sean likes to play down his, he's like, I'm no one. Not, he doesn't say that, but like, he's like, no one wants to hear what I say. And it's like, Sean has awesome stories from growing up in San Diego.
Yeah.
Back during like one of probably the best times for me in BMX, and just so many dudes. Like, he used to do stuff with Wilkerson. He used to ride Mission Hills and all this stuff. So hopefully, Kurt or the other Sean
Yeah.
can convince him to do one with me. I mean, hopefully I see those dudes. I miss those dudes up there. I want to go up and ride this full pipe with them this winter. There's a full pipe that just runs in the winter up there.
Oh.
So you have to ride it like when it's probably like snowing and freezing. But
Perfect.
there's actually video footage of us riding that on the Snakebite channel.
Nice.
It's like riding the crustiest full pipe. There's some footage of us, like Seth Holton and a bunch of us riding it in the early 2000s. There's like a frozen dead coyote outside the front of it. But hopefully I see those guys soon. And yeah, I'll definitely do one with Jarl if he'll let me.
Yeah. It's not whether other people want to hear it, it's the fact that you want to do it that matters, Sean.
No,
Come on.
I would love to do it because he knows so many things that I want to pick out of his brain.
Yeah, and dude, he still shreds. He came all three of those guys came to Raise last this past no, I don't remember. But damn, it's November already. It was last March.
Yeah.
But they were at Raise and just Sean was killing it and it was awesome.
He's always been, I mean, Sean, he was sponsored. People know who Sean is.
Right.
He had, a part in Nowhere Fast. He had the Ender part in Cheese, which is up on the Snakebite channel. If you really want to see some Sean Jarl with Coke bottle glasses, bald head, just ripping. But yeah, he people know who he is. He's been around for a long time, and he is no slouch on that bike.
Yeah, and
you give me a half bar spin and one-footed table. Oof
is right. The thumbnail, I'll just pull this over here. When I type in Snakebite, our thing comes up right now that we're doing. But this thumbnail from Cheese Sean Jarl's part is a one-footed seat grab X-up.
Yep.
Is that what that's called technically? Like,
Yeah.
Is there a name for that?
No, that's just a 1-foot seat grab X-up. I mean, there's like the toadstool and stuff. I think a toadstool is a 1-foot seat grab X-up, but you're doing it rocket. That's a toadstool. I believe.
Okay.
And I think Hoffman would do those on vert. I think that's toadstool, but 1-foot seat grab X-up. That's right.
I just wondered because I've done those and just the seat grab X-ups for like ever, but never knew if it, because that's a lot to say. I figured it would have some kind of shorter thing, but didn't know.
No, I mean, there's some things that just have a long term, but there's like, inward one-hand X's like Bruce Crispin would do. We call those soupsters or stovepipes.
Yeah, stovepipe.
Which, interesting fact, I mean, the guy who invented those is Josh White from Oregon. So you can look up there's some pictures. Probably if you go to his Instagram, there's a photo of him in '86 at an AFA contest. He's doing it one foot one-hander stovepipe in '86, like about 6 feet out of a quarter pipe. And I don't think people did them since he did it. I mean, I'm sure some people did, but that trick really never caught back on until the late '90s.
Yeah, man, that's pretty nuts. I'm picturing that in my head right now, and that just feels
It's
insane.
on his. I think his Instagram's Josh White 67.
Okay, I
Um,
was trying to find it just now, but
yeah, it's
couldn't
like
see
Josh
it.
White underscore 67. It's probably there. He doesn't post that much stuff, like but he's got
There
some
it
stuff
is.
on there, and that photo's pretty awesome.
Oh my goodness, I just love these old pictures. Holy hell, in an air out. It doesn't even make sense. And it's
Yeah,
on one of those ramps that was like not the best geometry for airing out, probably.
I mean, he's one of the he's probably I mean, I think a lot of vert riders, he's one of the best vert riders ever. So,
That's incredible.
yeah, I mean, he's awesome. And it's funny that you look at his riding and like old school pro racer from Oregon named Daryl Young. Um, if you look at their styles, like their tabletops and some of the stuff they do,
Mm-hmm.
and you transfer it down to the riders that came after them, they're like the blueprint of like kind of the Northwest style is Josh White and Daryl Young.
That's so
Um,
cool.
if you look at the stuff they did, Daryl Young, some people will call it a ground chuck, which
Yeah.
that's fine. You're from the East Coast, but the sideways seat grab,
Yep.
that's a DY. Daryl Young invented that. His best friend Jeff Tabachi's from Portland. He invented the toboggan. He had the cover of BMX Action at the Gabriel Park trails, where there's a skate park now, doing a toboggan on the front of BMX Action in '87.
Hmm.
And he even had an interview in the back on how he invented it. So if you
Wow.
look at those two riders and kind of put the chain of dudes from the Northwest, even Oregon, you're going to see a lot of similarities. Like you look at a good Josh White table, and then you kind of look at an Inman table, you're like, oh, it's all the same kind of bloodline. I don't know. It's kind of crazy.
That's so interesting. Somebody amazing China said Josh White is about 16 in that photo question mark.
Uh,
The
uh, that's probably about right. Yeah, that he just got it. He just is that Chris Dachi? I think that maybe that's not Chris Dachi that mentioned that, but I know her Instagram thing's China, and she was pro GT Flatlander for girl Flatlander back then.
I'm
I
not
don't know. I don't think that's her Instagram handle. It's probably some dude I don't even know. But
yeah.
yeah, Josh is probably about 16 there. Yeah, probably 16, 17.
That's
He came out of Oregon and just went to I think it was the 85 AFA Masters, and kind of like people were like, where did this dude come from? Like
yeah.
because he was one of the first dudes to do. Him and Dominguez were the first dudes to do high 540s.
Yeah,
So,
that's a crazy trick in itself.
but that 1 foot soupster at that time is pretty. He's not even like pinching his seat or anything. He's letting that bike all just wiggle around like all heck. And then you got to think how little that bike is. He's
Yeah,
doing it on this bike that's right behind me on the wall, basically. It's the
right.
same year and everything.
I wonder if that makes the stovepipe work better. Because every time I've ever tried that, my wrists will not. They don't let me do that
I've
trick.
I've done one hand X-ups until one day where it gets away from you.
Uh huh.
But I've never done the soupster one. Bruce tells me, he said you don't even really have to pinch your seat. He goes, if you just stay above it, it kind of stays in there. But I've never tried one. It's like kind of by that time, it wasn't really a trick that I was attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
I know Bruce did his 360 ones over spines were a sight to behold, though.
That's incredible.
So,
Yeah, another thing that Kurt told me to ask you about was how it felt when you saw Bruce win X Games.
uh, I felt like I was gonna cry. I was so happy for him. Yeah, I was there filming for props, and I had to be up in the stands because you could only film practice at that time.
Oh, okay.
It, I mean, it was awesome. We were just psyched. I mean, everybody in the Northwest was psyched that Bruce was there because Bruce was like a contest dude. But like, even if you talk to like the dudes at Woodward, because everybody back then went to Woodward. You went to Woodward, and
Right, right.
he didn't seem like he was on that fence of like. And there's no, like the Dave Miras or the Matt. He wasn't a contest dude. He was a contest dude, but Bruce was still filming like street parts and stuff. He still
Mm-hmm.
rode everything, and it felt. I think I talked about this with Bostrom or somebody. It felt like one of ours had won the X Games. Like some. Uh, I'm trying to say it without like making it sound like I'm insulting like the dudes that were like heavy contest dudes, because they're all awesome and amazing, but it just seemed like Bruce was kind of a year earlier was a no name barely,
Yeah.
like, and then he came out and won. I think it was him, and then Alistair, and then Mira. Mira fell. He tried doing double flips the first hit of both of his runs, and fell. And Bruce just basically rode flawless. I mean, Alistair rode really, really good. I think just Bruce had a little. I mean, to be honest, just squeezing those bar spin one hand foofs in the middle of a contest run.
Yeah.
How hard that trick is, and he did it every time, and still doing like really good variations over the box jump.
Yeah.
And going high. I think it was just like he was a good contest rider, but I think everything fell into place that day for him.
Yeah, things.
But I was sitting with his mom and stuff, and his mom is a super sweetheart, and she's, all the BMX guys up here knew his mom from back day because he used to have a box jump in his backyard.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
That's so.
It was fun. I got kicked out of that X Games after that. So. They said I'm on a list. I'm not allowed ever back into the X Games.
Oh no.
Yeah, I missed my flight home. So
did you do something?
I was filming vert practice, and there was one deck where it had the stairs up, and there's so many kooky filmers and photographers because it was X Games.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin Robinson was finishing his run, and I was like, "Hey, Kevin," he was like getting all stuff. I was like, "Or if you're finishing, can I just grab your bike and roll in with my bag and fly out on the other side, so I can film without all these dudes around?" And he's like, "Yeah." So me dropping into a vert ramp and flying out on the other side is not scary. I've ridden over. I mean, Kevin's bike's a little weird, but so I just foot plant drop in, fly out on the other side, and then I just slide Kevin's bike down to him. And then I'm over there filming, and the security guard starts. I didn't even know he's hollering at me because I was in the middle of like filming.
Yeah.
And he's just like, "Hey," and I'm like, "What? Hey, what's up, man?" And he's like, "Why are you over here?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just filming." I'm like, "I have the press pass. How'd you get up there?" I'm like, "I just rode my friend's bike up here." He's like, "Bullshit." And I was like, "What?" Like, I was like, so I just ignored him. I was like, "Screw this guy." So I'm filming, and then 20 minutes go by, and I see him and like 3 other dudes walking up with like a big ass ladder.
Oh my god.
And they like put it up against the vert ramp, and I was like, "Oh my god." And I remember looking over at some of the other dudes on the thing, and they were like, "What the hell?" So they come up, and they're like bitching at me, and they didn't believe how I got up there, which I thought was really weird. And then I was like, they grabbed my press pass, and I was staying with Dennis Stankovic, and he's like one of the old Jersey local, grew up with like around Ralph Sinisi, helped out with the animal back in the day. We'd made extra letters on our thing so we could get massages and eat and do all this stuff. And they looked really good, but when they grabbed it, they could feel that we did it. Like the dude went to grab my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they called security and put me in a holding room.
Whoa.
And I sat there for like 3 hours, and I was like supposed to be, just filming vert and then going to the airport and flying home. They called Marco at props, and they're like, "He's making you." And I think this was the last. Marco wanted, I think, an excuse to not film X Games anymore.
Yeah. Because
they're just such a pain in the ass to deal with. So he wasn't mad at me or anything, but they held me forever, and then they finally let me go, and I missed my flight home and everything, and they told me I'm never allowed to document, be at the X Games. I bet you I could go nowadays. It's been so long,
Yeah.
But it was just ridiculous. It's pretty funny, so.
Wow, that is an incredible story. And also, somebody reminded that X Games was just sold by Disney, so I think you'll be okay.
Oh, it was just sold by Disney, yeah.
Yeah, so the new owners probably don't have that list that you were on.
I mean, X Games is so weird nowadays anyways, like, back then at least dudes had to work to get into it and stuff. I mean, they just invite, the dudes they invite are awesome, but it's just like, you're like, oh, you have 4 dudes competing.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
Yeah.
4 dudes who are your biggest sponsors, sponsored riders competing, it's like.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, there could definitely, I hope that, we can't really say much until they do the next one on how it'll go now that it's been sold, but I have high hopes.
Yeah, I don't put too much stock in those guys. I mean, there's been cool X Games. I mean, I'm I'm where in your head you're like, don't be that dude that's too hardcore for stuff. But in my head, I'm just like, you've seen the you've seen the story play out 1,000 times. Big company comes into BMX, does something, runs it for a while. Dudes get dependent on it, then they fucking. Sorry, I just swore. I don't
Oh,
know
you're
if that
fine. It
messed
doesn't
up your
matter.
thing.
No, it doesn't
Um,
matter.
but and then they just run it down and let everybody go and just screw everything up, and everybody's been so dependent and reliant on this company. It's like, and I don't think that's just BMX. I'm sure it happens to skateboarding and snowboarding and but it's just I don't put too much stock into it. When they come in, it's like, cool, that's good for those dudes, but
Yeah.
you know, who knows where it'll go.
Yeah, I can only hope, basically, that it.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing to do is just we can hope, but then at the same time support rider owned, or even just companies that you feel like you have good faith in.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're like one of those dudes out there that's like, we were talking about earlier, buying like all the new print books that are coming out.
Yeah.
If you're complaining about a magazine not being out, I mean, Jeff C has that silent magazine he's been doing with everybody, and they're offering subscriptions now.
There's
It's
a
like
lot of zines out there.
there's almost more print out there now than there was when it was just Ride and Dig.
I would agree.
It just go out there and get it. Find it. Go out there and get it. So many people are doing awesome zines. Dig does their yearly annual thing. That silent magazine's awesome. The books are awesome. It's like, go support this stuff, because that's in turn supporting, the BMX that you're passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be awesome if we could get to a place where that stuff really thrives. And I think that maybe we're in like a dawn of a new era, because that it kind of all died off, and
Yeah.
now the roots of it within zines and people making more. I feel like there's more full-length videos in the recent past than there had been 5 years
Yeah.
ago. It's just
And
like coming
I'm
back.
never even opposed against just dudes working on parts. Like, it's full length videos. I'm always down for that, but it's like some dudes can't do that. It's like,
Right.
but there's so much out there that you can take in. It's just like, when you see somebody just being salty about it, you're like, are you salty that it's just not your prime anymore? Or are you really just not putting the effort out to find this? Because, I mean, there's so much good stuff to take in from BMX right now that it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I think more or less that some of that just comes from the fact that people need something to bitch about.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
just
mean, it's
natural.
like you can go out right now and get a subscription to a magazine. Like, I mean, I just got the new Ride UK. Ride UK made a new issue. I
Yep.
was like, it's like they're out there. Like, go find them.
Oh yeah.
Hit up a BMX shop around you. They're probably gonna know where to get it or can get it for you.
Yep, absolutely, and it's definitely something that a lot more people have been doing, and it's cool to see, because usually these zines are like they're focused on whatever area they're
Yeah,
in, and it's so cool to see. Like there was one that had been Chuck Nagy here in Ohio was doing one called Heavy Pedals,
yeah. I've got a few of them.
and he was going super hard with it for a while there, but now he's more focused on some of the other stuff he's doing. He's still working on it, but
He's got
it,
the race team and stuff and everything.
yeah, but man, just it was so cool because he was constantly interviewing people locally and taking pictures at Ray's for the zine and just
Yeah,
going in with it, and it's just something that gets people stoked locally, where otherwise it's not as easy, because of the way BMX works these days.
yeah. And I mean, even when the big mags were around, sometimes I mean, there would be things, but sometimes if there would be an issue where it felt more locally to like San Diego or LA,
Right,
like where you're
exactly.
like, I don't, if you're a dude in Ohio or, someone in Nebraska or, in these one states, it's sometimes hard to connect with that because everything's so perfect. You're like, oh, well, I'm growing up and I'm riding ramps that are out in a cow pasture.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like, you know, it is. So it's good when you see zines and you can connect locally. I think the guys in Montana, I had it here. I think it's called Bullshit. They they have a zine, and they've got a lot of cement parks, and they've got a great zine. I know Josh Clemens. I'm sure some people are familiar with him. He rolls the Fast and Loose dudes.
Yep.
He writes the shop. He's done zines on a lot of his trips where he'll just sell off of his Instagram. Matt Cordova's done the same thing. So there's so much stuff out there, that you can take in that. And a lot of these dudes are great photographers and great at putting it. It's so much different than back in the day where you can put all this together and it can be a really awesome finished project.
Yeah, and we're in a time right now where I think that it is more acceptable and normal for people to do their own little thing and get supported than ever before. I mean, it's just outside of BMX even. It's huge to do your own thing right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that's kind of where I went with the Snakebite and the shop thing. It's like the way I'm just going to be happy is if I just let BMX, if I enjoy BMX the way I want to enjoy it, and I'm just going to put it out there, and if somebody else is enjoying it that way, awesome.
Yeah.
I know I'm a full BMX kook, and I like it. And I just, it's like I'm just going to put this stuff out there, and if dudes are into it, I'm psyched. If they're not into it, I don't care because I'll still go watch the videos or talk to the dudes I want to talk to or ride the stuff I want to ride and be just as hyped.
Right. It's just not the person it was meant for. And then there's other people out there that it is.
Yeah. I mean, there's some dudes that probably live and die watching feast contests, getting excited for the Olympics, which is awesome.
Right, exactly.
Sometimes when I watch it, I'm like, who's this dude? Not that I'm just like trying to, I feel like I'm trying to play catch up, but some of those dudes would probably look and be like, you guys are talking about Sean Yarl. Who the heck is Sean Yarl?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much disconnect, but hopefully one little seed will plant with those dudes and they'll just learn more about BMX and on both ends,
Yep. And I think I just made this connection that it's crazy when, you hear people talk about X Games and the people who ride at X Games. And then you hear people complain about, maybe not necessarily complain, but say how the Olympics isn't like a pure view of like who the best of the best are because it's country based and not just the best rider based. But I would almost say X Games is more well rounded as far as riders goes than even X Games is. Or I might have said X Games twice. The Olympics is more well rounded than X Games.
I mean, the Olympics, when I watch it this year, I mean, other than the TV, I just want to sit down and watch the full contest, like just let it run,
Yeah.
But I mean, it seemed good. I mean, I'm one of those dudes with BMX and with freestyle that's like, even with freestyle contests, like I'm like, in my head there can't be a real winner because I'm like just from that era where it's like an expression and everything like that, So and people do win contests. I get that, But to me, I'm like, this is a hard thing to do. Where when I watch the racing, because I enjoy racing, and I'll follow racing through the year. Like I'm really excited right now to see if Barry Nobles is going to come back from his wreck and win at Trans and how he's going to do in Vet Pro. But with racing, there is a true winner. With freestyle, you're like, but this year at the Olympics, I'm having a brain fart right now. Who's the Australian that won?
Logan Martin.
Yeah. He should have won.
It's a very
he was so good, dude. It was great.
It's very clear.
It's like you're like, well, yeah, there's expression and there's this, but you're like, God dang, Logan Martin's really good.
And he landed everything.
And he's catching
perfect.
A lot of transition.
Yep.
It's not like he's one of those dudes like it was like, yeah, he should have won.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I just made that connection. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting to think about because it is almost more well-rounded because they're forced to have the people from the countries rather than, however they decide who's at X Games.
Yeah, I mean, there are those things where some countries will have riders that lived in the States whose families are from, from wherever, and, they kind of, which is fine,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like with the Olympics, it is going to make a lot of the smaller countries, like a lot of South African, but South American and Central American and like Mexico. And so, it's going to give a lot more of those riders opportunities, and those countries might put more money into riding because there's so many amazing riders in the
Yep.
Americas that we don't even talk about. I mean, they're starting to, but it, I bet you in like 5 Olympics from now, it's going to be insane. Like
Yeah.
just, and it's going to be so more of a worldly thing where right now they were like, oh, we have to get this, or this person from the States is going to ride for this country. But there's going to, it's going to be crazy in a while.
Yeah, I definitely agree
I
with
do
that.
worry about you see those feast courses and the Olympic courses, and sometimes when a kid watches BMX, because they're going to be watching it, those courses, I'm scared sometimes it might make BMX, and I don't know if it will because BMX you can always just get in the dirt or go on the street, but where it feels a little elitist because if you're going to ride one of those courses, you're going to have to. I mean, Woodward barely even has courses like that. You have to
Yeah.
go. Australia and England have a lot of indoor parks that look like they're built towards that thing.
Mm-hmm.
In the States, we don't.
Yeah.
I think some other places we don't. So it's like a representation of BMX, but it is kind of like a different one. And I don't know if it'll pull more riders in because they're going to see that and they're going to go look at their local skate park and it's not going to match up. Where
Yeah.
you do see those Vans when Vans was doing those cement park contests. That I felt was a more truer representation of what's going on in BMX. But and I feel like that would pull more riders in because I know that's not what the Olympics worries about, but I think about it.
Yeah.
But when you see the cement park, you're like, this is accessible. I have this a town away or in my town.
Yeah. But on the same note, I would counter that with a perfect example from the Canode Nose podcast this week with Edwin and how he got into BMX from X Games.
It's true. But when he got into it with the X Games courses did not look like the Beast courses.
Still.
They look like a toaster strudel with
Listen.
all the squiggles.
Listen, my point still stands.
No,
Edwin got into X Games.
I totally get it, and I've heard Ed talk about. I think, I mean, there's a lot of dudes Ed's age that got into riding because of the X Games, and I think it will. But I do think that skate parks and everything was different back then too. Now so many towns have cement parks,
Yeah.
and if you see a cement contest, it's as a person who wants more people to ride, I feel like that's a bit more of a connection where they're like, I could go
You're
to my
right.
park and do this, where no one really has a 10 to 7 foot tall spine at their park,
You're
which
absolutely right.
dude, please build some more of that stuff here in the States. I want to ride it. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just, it is what it is, but I don't think it's a negative, it's fun to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I definitely would like to see a feast style skate park here and there because it's gonna push things regardless of his skateboarding, BMX, whatever it might be, in a certain direction if there ends up being no more like prefab style parks and only concrete stuff because concrete skate parks do tend to have similar, traits to them and you see similar stuff.
Yeah, well, they're really going that way now. A lot of the skate park companies, dudes are getting older. They just want to make the parks and make some money. Where, I look at a lot of the older Oregon parks and I'm like, no one's ever building these again.
Yeah.
You're these monsters. They're almost just dinosaurs now because they're so old. No one's building those skate parks anymore. We're lucky to have them here. I mean, you do look at a lot of the cement parks nowadays, and it's like bunk, bunk, bunk. Even if it's like a company that you're like, oh, these guys built this. Well, they're not building it now because they want that. They want to get that job.
Yeah, right. I mean, how do you get somebody to build like the Athens, Ohio skate park? Like, how do you get them to do that again? That park is enormous.
Oh, the crazy one that's like kinked and weird and looks insane.
And it's got like a giant deep end to it with a capsule and all that. Yeah, it's nuts.
I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I think those parks are gonna die off just because they just are. It's just harder to build. The city just wants. Cities are always gonna want just that cut and dry thing. Say, hey, we did it for you.
Well, and how many people are? aside from the fast and loose guys, how many people are really riding those parks the
Oh, I
way
mean, up
they're
here,
built?
people up here really ride them like that.
Well,
I
not in
mean,
Ohio.
I
There's
mean, the fast and loose dudes are always going to do it better. But I mean, up here, like dudes have always, we've had those parks longer than anybody, so dudes always ride
yeah.
them. You know?
There's like I gotta clarify before people flame me for saying not in Ohio. There are people who shred them in Ohio, but like there's only a few people who are riding like the fast and loose dudes
Yeah, but I mean,
here.
BMX is secular. It'll always be right now. You know, they might not be, but in a while they might be. You know, and
Right.
I know in Australia, you look at a lot of those riders, and they all seem to be able to ride those things like that.
Yeah, what I was just saying is like there's not very many people who are going to be pushing for something like
Yeah, yeah,
that.
no, it's usually an older dude. I mean, I feel like some younger dudes that would do that up here, but yeah, it's always going to fluctuate. I do just think those type of parks are a dying breed, though. You know, I hope
Mhm.
not.
I
I
hope
hope that.
not too.
Yeah, I like big skate parks. They're easier on my joints.
And man, there's one that's built by the same people that built the Athens one. It's in Grove City, Ohio. It's just south of Columbus. You don't even have to leave the ground at that place to have fun. It is so good.
Yeah, no, I feel like big skate parks are safer than the little ones because you're not falling to flat. You know, like you just want to be an old dude and go fast and do some. Even if you're just doing coping airs and just ripping around, it's fun. You know.
Yeah. Speaking of riding and stuff, like what's BMX look like for you these days, riding wise?
This year's been a little hard. My dad's gotten older, so I've been kind of after work. I'd have to go take care of him sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when it was nice out, I'd try to get like at least 3 sessions in a week. I go ride Tigard Skate Park a lot. I didn't ride Burnside that much this year. Sometimes I'll ride it a bunch, and then sometimes I won't. But we have a bunch of parks around us, and I mean, it literally looks about what it's looked like since the '90s. Is me riding with the same dudes I've always rode with, kind of their kids now.
Yeah.
We got some public dirt jumps that we were riding. I was like, oh, well, I'll ride these. I kind of stopped riding trails and stuff because my knees. I think both of them need surgeries, and,
Oh.
and I don't have insurance, and I'm really scared to just jump off on a big jump.
Yeah.
Where if like I'm airing a quarter pipe, you can show up and be like, I'll just do some 2-foot airs till I'm comfortable and start going higher. Where you go ride trails, it's like if you showed up at a vert ramp and you're like, you need to roll it and do 10 feet right now. Like
Mm-hmm.
it. So, but no, I mean, it just there's certain tricks I can't do anymore because my body doesn't want to, but I can still do a turn down and that makes me happy. I
It's a
can still
good
do an
trick.
ice grind and that makes me happy, and
Oh.
I can still sit on the deck with my buddies and talk shit, and that really makes me happy. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's about what it's always looked like. I mean, every year I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go out and hit a handrail, and I never do. Hobie always wants me to go hit a handrail with him, so maybe one day I'll hit a handrail again. We'll see.
That would be
Um,
sick.
yeah, I mean, I can't bunny hop that good like I used to because I broke my ankle like 5 times, and my right ankle doesn't really move that well.
Yeah. I'm sure
So,
Hobie can find you the right rail and it'll be
well,
good.
I know where they're all at. I tell them
Oh,
where
okay.
they're at.
Okay.
So, but yeah, no, I mean, I try to, I've been I race once in a while. I never raced growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So we have our race team, and I'll go race once in a while or go do some gates and stuff. It's just fun. I just try to just go have fun on the bike.
Yeah,
So
man. That's
so
good to
yeah.
hear. I love to hear when people kind of like live their lives so that they can keep riding. And I mean, at the core of things, is that kind of part of why you do some of what you do, is to be able to keep
I'm
BMX at the core?
I just like riding bikes, and I like everything to do with bikes, and I don't like taking orders or directions from people, so I just do what I do.
There you go. Um, Man, I totally forgot I meant to shout this out. I hope he's still here. Where'd it go? Martin McFarland.
Oh, that's my buddy Marty. He was my like Marty's like my he's one of the people that saw Hucky do the hand plant.
Oh, he can represent in the chat. Nice. And
Yeah,
clarify. But
he he's a gnarly old vert dude. He still rips, and his son Austin is definitely gonna be a dude you're gonna watch out for here in the Northwest soon.
Nice. But what he said was first he said that he was there when the T-bog was invented. Then he
He was
said,
there. Yeah.
should clarify and say I was at the photo shoot with Jeff Tabachi doing the first T-bog. Was at the old dirt jumps at Gabriel Park in Portland, and I just wanted to shout that out because I think that that is like, I mean, that is a moment that how many not very many people can say that they've been there for a moment like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think those dudes. That spot was actually for the late '80s. Was kind of, I think, a trail spot. I've walked there now, and you can still see the where the jump was.
Mm-hmm.
There's a rock the city put there, a big boulder where they couldn't jump there anymore. And now there's a skate park like 100 meters away from there.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, Tabachi was good friends with Daryl Young, and I think those dudes, the freestyle dudes who go out to the jumps once in a while, and Marty was a big dude in the Salem and Portland scene back then. And if you guys want to see some Marty McFarland footage, there is some raw vert footage of him from like '87 or '88, like ripping this vert ramp on the Snakebite YouTube channel.
Nice.
He's got a mullet, no shirt on, no socks, and he does a real mean one-hand invert and some really nice no-foot cans, and it goes really high.
I mean, what more can you ask for, honestly?
Yeah, look up Marty McFarland. I mean, he's kind of like that dude in the north. If you lived in the Northwest, you always knew about him, but he if he would have left more, he definitely could have. He could have done well in early vert contests, like the early two-hip contests. I know he went to a few,
That's awesome.
He super good style.
Brad Barker, you gotta go back. We'd already talked about the dinosaur photo.
Hey, Brad. I know Brad. Brad's awesome.
We had a whole conversation about that one. But Shad Johnson, man, this has been a great conversation. It's after midnight here, getting closer. It's 12:30, so I need to head to bed. But I would love,
man. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, absolutely. This has been awesome. Like I love nothing more than learning about the things like what we've talked about tonight. And I used to feel like kind of like I had to apologize for not knowing things, but I almost like it more because I can talk to people like you through where I've gotten myself in YouTube and BMX and learn all this stuff directly from the source rather than,
I mean, I'm just trying to learn stuff too. I definitely do not know everything, and I've hit my head so many damn times that I'll forget things or I'll forget names. I did that Lee Ramsdale podcast that's coming up, and there was a part where I was like trying to remember Josh Hino's name.
Nice.
And it just over my head, where I'm like, and I don't know if I'm kind of an airhead, but I was just like, and I had to take out this like whole little piece that was just like me sitting there, and Lee and Ryan Baird are like, "Who are you talking about?" And I'm like, hold on."
Oops.
But yeah,
that's funny.
I'm always learning too, so it's always fun.
Yeah, man. So can you let everybody know where they can find you and what you've got going on, whether it be the shop, Snakebite, anything?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to know what I'm doing or what my dogs look like, you could go to Shad4130 on Instagram. But my shop, I have Goods BMX and Goods BMX Racing. You can do .com and go to the websites for those, or follow them on Instagram. And then I do the Snakebite BMX on Instagram. We do have a website. I haven't posted on there for a while. I keep meaning to get back into that. Hopefully here soon I can. Like I said, the pandemic kind of screwed up my rhythm I had going for a while, but
yeah.
Snakebite BMX on Instagram, on YouTube, and I usually try to post like a couple videos a day. Some of them are crazy. Sometimes it'll be somebody you don't know, and they're still awesome.
Yep, absolutely. And you are doing such an awesome job with it, and I love just seeing all the crazy, like random stuff, and then old stuff from people that you've heard of, and just it's awesome.
And if anybody's watching and you have old contest footage or 80s contest, 70s, 90s contest footage, even if it's a contest that's been up and you have different angles and you don't know what to do with it, hit me up, send it to goodsbmx.com. I'll transfer it, send it back to you. So people can enjoy it and see different angles and see maybe something that no one caught. That's the exciting thing to me. Or if
Yep.
it's just a jam in your area that was awesome that no one knew about and you want to post it up, send it my way.
Absolutely. I hope that maybe this can push more people towards what you're doing because it's amazing, man.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm just like I said, I'm just trying to watch bikes all the time and nerd out about it. So,
Yeah. Well, if that's what anyone watching wants to also do, go check it out
hey,
because
and if you go to Snakebite, let me tell you a couple videos that I like. If
okay.
you want to go on there and watch the one I was super excited for this year, I got a copy of the Mongoose video late that was from the early '90s, and it's basically Dave Perrick made it for Mongoose. I don't even know if they released it in the United States. I got it from a guy in Australia. A lot of Fuzzy Hall, a lot of Dennis McCoy, but there is a small Vic Murphy part and a
Wow.
small Chris Muller part because they rode for Mongoose tires. So go check that out.
Wow.
Uh, Another awesome video, one of my favorites, is Monsters of Suburban High Life. It's a little weird, but give the whole thing a watch. There's some awesome riding in it. And I'll give you one more from. Go watch Wilkerson Airlines Life on the Edge. It's awesome. Wilkerson's my favorite rider. That video is awesome. The best part is there's a vert ramp in Nebraska. I'm totally spacing the dude's name.
David McGinnis.
No, another vert rider.
Okay.
Uh, right now, oh, I'm having a brain fart right now. I know his name too.
It's not
Anyway, all
Josh Hino,
Nebraskans
is it?
should be pissed I forgot his name, but there's an awesome part with Ron and him ripping that backyard ramp, and it is amazing, and it's such a fun video. So give that a watch.
There's your homework, everybody. Make sure you do it and turn it in.
So, all right. Well, hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being on here, and all of the info you need is in the description. So